Why are you not? There we are.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to the first installment of Matter of Fact. I'm going to see how the audio sounds real quick before I just start talking my shit.
And I'm just going to go ahead and talk into my mic as well.
All right. Fantastic. I'm going to mute my phone. They can hear us quite well.
All right.
So, back here we have a whiteboard. We wish you could see it better. One day we will have a better setup for you guys, but right now we're incredibly limited. But we want to give you the content. We want to give you the due diligence on our part of appreciating you guys.
What's that look like full screened?
This?
Oh, you're doing it. Yeah.
Then,
Yeah.
there we are.
Honestly, if your screen is full screened, you'd probably be able to see it pretty well.
Yeah, I'm going to read all of it for you, but I titled it as Matter of Fact up here. That's the name. That's the idiom. I love it personally.
Yeah, it's a great, it's an idiom that has some attitude to it, I'd say.
Oh, yeah. It's like convictious.
As a matter of fact.
It's like matter of fact, actually.
As a matter of fact. Like, I have the truth, not you.
Right. And I'm DAYZ. Who do we have over here?
I'm Seth A.M.
And we're going to establish some ground rules first. We had an idea for this. Me and Seth connect on book smarts and intelligent. We like street smarts as well. There's a lot of common sense things that we pay attention to, but we're very interested in things like science, math, philosophy, even religion. We're very interested in all these things. We're very interested in, you would say, the American history of it.
That definitely. The secrets of the universe.
Decoding.
Yes, the secrets of the universe are very interesting to us, and all of the different evidence and all of the different explanations that humans have come up with throughout our history to try to come to some solid conclusions on what is this universe and why is it here and why are we here and how is this all happening, and we're just very interested in those same questions that our ancestors have been asking for millennia.
Right. And philosophy, this is going to be biased on my end because I love philosophy, but it's like people like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle poke out to me as people that are great examples of this. Like, I've just finding out that Aristotle laid down logic, essentially, and where we build on it. It's very important information to have to me because it shows me how humanity has led us to this moment. But we're going to get all into that. I want to lay down some more ground rules real quick. So firstly, who are we? This is DAYZ and Seth A.M. We're going to be doing Matter of Fact, a show. It's a science-based show, but do either of us have a degree?
No, we do not have
a
a degree. Not that we're not educated at all, but we do not have a higher educational degree to prove our credibility, although we have done a lot of research and studying on our own time.
I personally haven't delved into topics that much, such as biochemistry and quantum physics. So if you came here for things like that, maybe on episode like 100,
yeah,
I could elaborate on these things. That would be more of a Seth question.
I did go to college for
I didn't even go to college.
2.5 years, 5 semesters, and my degree major was biochemistry. It was a natural sciences degree. I did not finish, but I did take a lot of classes, and I did learn a lot while I was there.
And it's like, why are we saying all this? Why is this important to state now?
When we say that our show is called Matter of Fact, what that means is that a lot of the topics we're going to discuss are known or perceived facts from the human race. So when we say the sky is blue, it's taken as a fact. And when we talk about the color of the sky, it's within the realm of what humans consider fact. So anything we talk about, we're going to be trying to discuss what is considered facts. However, we may not be seen as the most credible sources of fact, given that we don't have a degree. So the main thing we're going to be doing is looking at what very credible individuals throughout history or even now are saying about these things, and then we'll be discussing our perception, how convincing these people are to us, how convincing the evidence of all the things they're saying is. So the biggest thing we want to get across in this moment at the beginning of our podcast is that the truth can be kind of relative. Very, very intelligent and credible individuals disagree with each other on what the truth and what the facts are. And evidence is always in question, and a scientific mind will always question the evidence.
A new theory could undermine so many others.
True. And it's like we, as humans, and in our society, we take the most relevant and the most updated evidence and we take it as fact. However, it could be disproven by another more relevant or more updated scientific theory or formula or evidence.
And on the contrary, we also play around with ideas. It's like the idea of God is not in itself a known fact.
Right.
But we're very willing to accept that if that reality existed, what would that entail? And then we look at the facts, as in what is said in the Bible. That's factual information that we can go out and seek.
Right.
It's like we might not be able to say exactly who wrote the Bible. So
where did the Bible come from?
Right. And it's like questions like that we can attempt to answer with as much of human knowledge that we've come up to this point with.
And there is human knowledge about where the Bible came from.
It had to come from somewhere.
Right. And we actually know there's a lot of evidence and there's a lot of historical data that shows where things like the Bible came from. And it, to be honest, in many ways makes the Bible sound more credible.
I'm going to take a shot right here. So we're not like scientific junkies who make fun of religious people and then adopt the same mannerisms, as in dismissing them. Like the things that they hate about religious people are the same things that they adopt.
Yeah.
Which is, in a way, narrow thinking.
Yeah.
It's very much like Professor Dave Explains says that he's a YouTuber, but he has a lot of opinions. He is an interesting character. You should watch at least one of his videos to get what I mean, especially about flat earthers or...
Very knowledgeable.
He's incredibly knowledgeable about a lot of things. But he is quick to call any religious practice or any religious doctrine a dated system. So he pretty much disqualifies anybody that says they're religious. If they're religious, they're not even up for the contest of intellectual debate or discussion.
So you and I would say that Dr. Dave Explains, is making the same mistake that maybe some religious people on the extreme end are making, where they take the evidence that they see for their belief as irrefutable proof, and they're willing to ignore all the evidence for potentially a different belief system, and they're willing to say unequivocally the other person is wrong. It's factually proven they're wrong. And in making that mistake, they're ignoring the reality that it's possible that both of them are wrong, or neither is true, or one of them's true and the other's not true, and that the human beings, through our explorations, have never truly come to a solidified, irrefutable, completely proven theory of the universe. And that, just for example, myself, I'm very convinced by evolutionary science and by biology that is the source of humanity and the source of life. Yeah, we love to party. This is biochemistry right here. Mm-hmm. I'm very convinced by it. If you held a gun to my head and said, "What do you believe?" I'd probably pick evolution. But to my questioning mind, evolution could almost never be truly proven factual. And I'm willing, if I died today and popped up in front of God in heaven, and he said, "Why did you think evolution was true? Why didn't you believe in me?" I would say, well, I still believed it was possible. I think
that's a level of openness.
Right. I don't ascribe specifically to any one belief because I recognize that my biases could be blinding me.
So that's one aspect of this podcast that I want to just lay out right now, is that both me and Seth are fairly open about theological and scientific research and knowledge. We're fairly open to it. We're not just shutting one or the other out. that's not to say that me and Seth don't disagree on things, because we're open but about different things depending on the subject. And also
convinced by specific things,
mm-hmm.
although open, we do see things, a lot of specific things as very convincing.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say evolution's a great example.
And another example is Christianity. I think another YouTuber that we've watched together, David's watched him more than I have, but his name's Cliff.
Cliff Konecny.
Cliff Konecny.
And his son, Stuart Konecny.
He's a religious activist.
He's a pastor, I believe.
He tells people of his belief in God, and he specifically talks about how he's a very educated man.
He's very logical.
He
tries to come off incredibly
believes
logical.
in evidence. When he was younger, he was told that Christianity was true by a lot of people, but his questioning mind said, how do we know for sure? And he went out and he sought a lot of evidence. And he's very convinced. And I would say that he is maybe making the same mistake that Dr. Dave Explains is making, where he is so far convinced that he's unwilling to even consider that it's not true at all.
Well, here's the difference between him and Dave. And this is not to go off on a tangent. I'm gonna have to pull it back.
Yeah.
Just to get to the next question. But me and Seth are very open. So a lot of conversations will blow up. But we do have topics, and we do have we're gonna conduct this. Cliff, so whenever he's debating an atheist, he talks about his 4 tools for proving historical evidence is fact, or at least the best system for it.
Right.
And then someone that I've never seen anybody do this, but I believe his name's Matt. He's an atheist. He's a famous atheist who debates religious people online. But he said, okay, your 4 points, are those 100%? Does that mean that you have now come to the conclusion that, yes, your Bible is 100% solid because of those? And Cliff said, no, that is not what that means. Professor Dave Explains cannot do that.
Right.
Professor Dave Explains is so closed off that even you thinking he might be wrong has already put you in a bracket of stupidity that he's not even listening to you anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where Cliff is not
personally attacking other people's intelligence because they don't just see the world the way he sees it.
They're stupid.
Right.
They're closed off. Yeah. But
and someone on the other side could easily look at him and think, he's so stupid. How could he possibly believe in this evidence when the evidence I'm looking at is more convincing to me? So that's the mistake we don't want to make, is that if we say something on this podcast, I never want anyone to think that I believe they're stupid if they don't agree with me, or if that their evidence is more convincing to them than it is to me. I understand that we all have a lot of evidence. That's something I was pointing out about Cliff, is he brings forth pretty convincing evidence when he talks about Christianity. He's talking about thousands of witness testimonies of Jesus Christ's life and things like that. And you know, when 5,000 people all agree they saw the same thing, that's pretty convincing to me. But something else I know for sure, based on a lot of maybe even just anecdotal, but also what everyone else around me is saying, is that our senses aren't perfect. So if 5,000 people think they saw the same thing, maybe they were all seeing the same illusion. And they all did see it. And I'm not even saying they are lying. I'm saying they all equally misunderstood what they were seeing. And so it's convincing evidence. However, it's still not irrefutable.
It's not 100%.
And it's like that. You could apply that same thing to evolution. There are thousands of scientists who have done research toward evolution's like theorization, and they did testing and they observed results with imperfect senses. So they're saying, yeah, when this bred with this, these were the results. They're not seeing everything that's happening in the process, and it's not irrefutable proof because the people observing the evidence are imperfect. So we can't come to irrefutable proof, given any proof we come to is observed by imperfect individuals.
And that's just a taste.
That's just a taste.
Like when it comes to religion, and like we're going to have those topics.
Yeah.
There's no way we're not.
The topic at hand now being truth can be relative, and nothing we say here is irrefutable.
Which ties into who are we? What we're doing is we are laying down the foundations of our thought and where we're coming from. So there's no question. So the next question that comes after we lay down that we're trying to remain open and trying to hungrily take in knowledge often, looking into the data, trying to get as close to objective truth as we can come. Why are we doing this? Why are we sitting right here recording this for everyone to hear us talk? Why is this important? At least to us. Why?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind for me is all the conversations we've had not on camera.
Right.
And how deeply interested we clearly both are on a myriad of subjects. And the conversations we've had have been so interesting and fulfilling to me to be able to have another person questioning the same questions I am and coming to sometimes very different conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
And those conclusions can be revelations for me because I never came to those conclusions myself. But when I heard them, in many cases, I was very convinced by them. And in many cases, I disagreed heavily with them.
Right. We have had some passionate discussions.
But I think what we get from these conversations is outside perspective. And so I would say my goal with this is to not only give my perspective to David and to the viewers, but to also hear David's perspective and hopefully hear this perspective of the viewers. And also,
we love comments.
Yeah. And I want all of us to hear each other's perspectives. The viewers, David, myself, so that we can all come to a deeper truth for ourselves. And it's never going to match, but we can all get closer to what we feel the truth is, because it's always feel.
Right.
None of us is going to be unequivocally proven, but maybe you'll hear something I say and you'll think, oh, I was getting it wrong all this time. And you're going to lead a life that's more fulfilling to you after that. And maybe you'll say something in the comments to me, and I'll think, oh, wow, I was getting it so wrong before now. And then my life will change, and hopefully it's a mutually beneficial experience for everyone involved.
I agree. For me, there's a lot of reasons that I'm doing this. There's obviously selfish reasons. There are reasons that are similar to what Seth was saying, where it's like, I believe that humans offer a perspective. I think perspective is incredibly important. I don't think it's just easy to dismiss history or to not look things in the face as they are. And what I mean by that, I'll give World War II as an example. Jordan Peterson makes a great point about this. He says people always think, when they think about World War II, that they would be one of the righteous, empathetic, what's the word?
Hero.
Hero is great. Yeah, hero is a great word. You always love to plug yourself in as the good one, but it's like it wouldn't be so easy. It wouldn't be so obvious if you were there. It wouldn't. If you were in Germany and you were a German and everything was against a group of people that had nothing to do with you and you didn't have to worry about it. It's like, I don't know all the details of World War II. But I'm not just going to dismiss it and say I would never do that. I don't think that's realistic. And then also, Hitler is, it's easy to dismiss Hitler as an individual. And I understand.
Yeah.
But you can't say he wasn't charismatic. You can't say he wasn't a great speaker. You can't say he wasn't unbelievably motivational and he created influence. That's objective terms. I'm not telling you influential as in a good way. That's not what I mean at all.
He influenced
he was very
millions of people
influential.
He
was powerful.
Outlandishly, like outside of the norm things.
And what I'm getting with all this is that humans offer perspective. Not everyone is going to think Hitler was, I don't know what the right word is.
Evil.
Well, it's like I still think Hitler was evil.
Yeah.
But I think he was a great speaker. But when people think he's evil,
talented.
They don't want to get, yeah, that's a great word. Yes, talented. It's like I don't want to dismiss things that people would just look over because they're biased and what makes them uncomfortable.
You don't ever, a lot of people don't ever want to hear a compliment to a villain.
And they don't want to hear a diss to someone that
To the
everybody
hero,
loves.
yeah.
Because what they care more about the reputation of these people than the legitimacy of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more than people. People was just a great example. People do this with everything. People do this with jobs. People do this with their family. People do this with friends. People do this with every single thing they're doing. They have a perspective on it. There are different priorities in their life. There is different definitions of good and bad and what they like and what they don't like. So they make different decisions. And you have a different life because of that. And it's like, I don't know all the decisions you've made, but I'm willing to hear something that I might not have known. It's important to me to do something like this. It's important to me to offer perspective, and it's important for me to take in others' perspectives. And I think that this is an outlet for me to communicate that and to potentially build network in this area of, I want to say the internet, but also just consciousness, just psychology, friends with other people.
People who are interested in these topics.
Yeah, and they don't have. I don't even want them to agree with everything I say.
Yeah.
I don't want that. It's like, I want to hear, even if it makes me upset, and there are times where certain discussions don't go the way that I want them to, and then I have to reflect on my behavior in those moments. I'm getting much better at it, but it's not taking what they're saying personally instead of attaching it to the argument or the debate or the discussion and seeing where they're truly coming from. Another reason that this is important to me is because it helps me tap into the DAYZ persona. I would say that this is what this is. It's like the same David that just started talking about our schedule at the gym loudly. Like,
yeah.
Like very excitable about schedule, J-type. Scheduling and making sure that things are important and taken seriously.
Planning ahead.
Yes. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions that we would need for matter of fact. Who are we? Why are we doing this? How do you see this going with what we've set up so far? There's going to be topics, potential segments.
Yeah.
I'm not going to drop any segment names yet because I love the names.
I see us having a conversation today and things being brought up that we aren't totally sure about. And we're going to say what we know, or at least what we think we know, and we're going to reveal a lot about what we believe to be true, and we're going to reveal a lot about what we've never considered, and we're going to reveal a lot about what we would like to find out. And then when we're not here recording the podcast, we're going to spend a lot of time learning about the things the empty spaces that we found. And then the next time we talk, we're potentially going to bring that type of thing up alongside bringing up new topics that we haven't talked about yet. So I see this being a journey through learning where we present what we've learned this past week because we were sparked into an interest on the podcast, and we go and learn about it. And then the next podcast, we come back and we say, okay, so I looked this thing up that we talked about last time, and we talk about that this time. And then new things are revealed. New blank spaces are revealed, and we just fill in the gaps of our knowledge. And maybe it's like you say something I'd never heard of, and you tell me all about it. And it's like, okay, that's David's perspective on it. And then maybe I go look that thing up. Even though you told me what you know about it, I'm going to look it up for myself and read about it and learn about it. And then the next time I'll talk about, okay, yeah, that thing we talked about, I looked it up and I learned this. And then it's like just a journey of learning.
I agree.
And recording what we have learned.
I accept it as a challenge as well, because it's going to make me, I really want to mean what I say. I don't want to gloss over anything.
Yeah.
That was like a luxury that's something that I think that you do naturally, is that you are minute, meticulous. I think you're very naturally meticulous. I think you put a lot of big concepts in grouped together as a bunch of small components, and you're very good at wrapping that together. I am not. I am more so like gathering of the small details to like put into a big sack.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm doing.
It's all in one big sack, and you're like ruffling through the sack.
Yes. I'm like, which variable do I need?
I take you back to my fucking horse-drawn carriage, and I open up the curtain, and there's like a 1,000 tiny jars, and I pick out the jar, and I'm like, you see this?
Yeah. And they all have.
And then I'm like, and then I pick another jar from over here, and I'm like, you see this? And I put them together, and they like fucking glow or something, and you're like, whoa, I didn't know those two things did that together.
On the outside of the jars, there's little paintings of what the things resemble.
Yeah, right,
yes,
right.
Bro, I could
Symbols,
totally.
yes.
Symbols. I see you. Yeah, you're very symbolic with your learning.
Fair.
Very naturally.
My horse-drawn cart is parked at the gas station. I'm a wizard. I work behind the counter.
Oh yes, if Seth resembles anything, it is a wizard. I cannot wait until we talk about archetypes.
Yeah, dude.
Ooh, actually, yes, perfect. You know what the first topic is?
Psychoanalysis. I remember.
What
David told me.
What do you have to say about psychoanalysis?
First of all,
Why is it the first topic? This is matter of fact. This is the first show. We chose psychoanalysis.
Mm-hmm.
We could have chose psychology, but we didn't. We chose psychoanalysis.
We laid a lot of groundwork with truth as being like the introduction. So it's like we're trying to let everyone know like what basis we're going off of to even be saying what we're saying. So when we talk about psychoanalysis, you know what kind of a speaker I am. You know my source of knowledge. Psychoanalysis is controversial.
Who was it founded by?
Sigmund Freud.
Yes.
It's controversial. Sigmund Freud is controversial.
So I'm looking it up right now.
We're going to talk about...
I'm very confident, but I'm making sure because it's a matter of fact.
Right. As a matter of
fact.
Maybe
we should just look up a lot of what we say.
That's what I'm saying. That's
yes.
like when I said that we're going to be talking and we're going to find gaps, we just found a gap.
I was thinking of gaps like that we would connect after the episodes. I wasn't even thinking about looking
We will
shit
do
up.
that too.
Of course we should look
But
shit up.
during the show,
That was my first
some of those
instinct
gaps,
anyway.
yes, we're going to fill some gaps. So we
Who founded psychoanalysis?
want to make sure that we know for sure who founded psychoanalysis.
According to Google.
According to Google.
So it has to be right.
Again.
Yes, Sigmund Freud is credited with founding psychoanalysis. Freud was an Austrian neurologist, medical doctor, and psychologist who developed a theory of the mind and a method of treating mental distress. His work and profound impact on psychology and Western culture.
Okay, so Sigmund Freud is controversial.
Incredibly.
We're going to talk a lot about Sigmund Freud anyway because there are a lot of people who believe what he says. And so it's important to understand what he says because we can see into the minds of people who believe him by knowing what he says. If they believe him and they take him as a credible source, then they believe what he says. So it's important to know. Even if I don't like Sigmund Freud and even if I don't agree with him, I want to know what he says because I want to know what the people around me believe.
That's like the Adolf Hitler thing.
Right.
Like there's probably colleges trying to get rid of Freud's books.
Right.
They're probably like, oh, no, we have a better version of this.
Right.
Let's get this out of here.
If you burned every book that Sigmund Freud ever wrote and the entire human race forgot about Sigmund Freud and what he said, the inevitable reality is someone else would think of it again. And we'd have no basis to be like, no, that's wrong. We'd be like, oh.
We'd be starting from ground zero again.
This guy's saying this thing and I've never heard of it.
Dude, that reminds me of a quote by Nietzsche.
And what would happen is a bunch of people would believe this new guy and they'd have no books that they read about why Sigmund Freud was wrong. So they'd have no basis to be like, this guy's wrong. And so they'd believe what he says. And if something Sigmund Freud said led to a catastrophic outcome for humanity, and so we burned all his books and hated him and forgot about him and never talked about what he said again, then that catastrophic thing would be at risk of happening again.
Yeah, and then we wouldn't have
gesturing.
No, I did it. Yes. It's important to hear perspectives that you don't like. It's very important.
Yes.
Humanity should be able to hear a perspective that they don't like and logically take it in to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
Like, we're emotional creatures at heart. We are a species after all.
A biological organism.
A biological biochemistry. We're chemical beings.
Mm-hmm.
made up of chemicals.
We're genetic.
Yeah.
We have genes. We have ancestry. We have inheritance. We inherited.
We came from something.
Yes. And as biological beings, we are descendant. And what we descended from is I believe it's a class. Is mammal the class or the order or the genus or the kingdom? It's not the kingdom.
What do you want me to look up?
Mammal classification.
Mammal classification.
Kingdom animal.
Kingdom animal.
So it's
Phylum?
right. So the phylum Chordata, the class. It was class. Okay. So what I was correct the first time. We are mammalia, which are mammals. The class that we fall under. It's all a organizational. It's kind of like a tree. Every mammal is an animal. Every mammal is a chordata, but not every chordata is a mammal.
Okay.
And not every animal is a mammal.
Okay.
So, and then if you zoom in even further, we have a genus. I believe it's primate.
But I just look up genus primate.
Primate classification.
Primate.
Primates are mammals that are classified based on their external morphology and phylogenetic relationships. Here are some ways primates are classified. There are suborders. Primates are divided into two suborders, Strepsirini and Haplorini. I've never heard those two words. Apes are divided into two families, greater apes and lesser apes. Prosimians, which are a suborder of primates, that are characterized by specific traits that place them into a unique group. And then there's old world monkeys. So there's a lot of different kinds of primates. All of them are primates, but primates are not necessarily all of them.
Right. So how does this tie into what you're saying right now?
Yes. So
tie into psychoanalysis.
Mammals, among other animals, but specifically mammals, have brains. Brains are a large piece of the central nervous system. It is how we make decisions. It has control over our body. When you move your hand, it is your central nervous system making a decision to move your hand based on a lot of stimuli and
past behavior.
Right. I mean, based on instinct, which we inherited, but also based on experience, which we lived through. So we filter through all of our knowledge of the world and our instinct and the situation we're in the moment and decide what to do through all of these filters. It's like there's no reason for me to wave my hand explaining things if I wasn't explaining things. It's a part of the thing I'm doing. I'm waving my hands, and it's very subconscious. I'm not like
very natural
thinking a whole lot about why I'm waving my hand or which way I'm going to wave my hand, except I am. It's just subconsciously I'm thinking about it, and I'm not so aware of it consciously. And this is the case for mammals and for living things that have a central nervous system, which is an inherited trait. It's a genetic trait. To even grow a brain, your genes have to say to grow a brain. And how to grow a brain, what it's made of, what it's structured like. Your cells have to decide to do these things through the instructions they're given in their DNA. And our DNA tells our brain to be a certain way. We have a lot of very deep folds in our brain. It creates more surface area on the surface of the outer part of our brain, which is where electrical signals travel. And if you look into chemistry and physics, which are parent sciences of biology, it says that surface area increases the speed and potency of a chemical reaction. So when we evolved to have deeper grooves, everyone knows the grooves of the brain. If you've seen a brain, it's like
it has like the
grooves.
Indent.
If you look at our brain versus the brain of other animals, our grooves are deeper and more plentiful. There's more surface area, so more of a electrical reaction can take place in one moment and thus we can have deeper, more complex thoughts. We can filter through more stimulus. We can come to more concrete or specific
It's very
decisions.
like condensing.
Yes.
It's like I was just reading about, reading about it. You're not paying attention to the nose on your face, but it's always in your vision.
It's in your vision, yeah.
But your brain has decided
it's
not
irrelevant.
necessary.
It's irrelevant.
And it's trying to maximize efficiency.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, don't worry about it.
It's like it's not there.
There's no threat.
Right. I can focus more on other things by ignoring that thing.
You're right.
Yeah. So through the process of evolving a more complex brain, animals, including humans, but not necessarily just reserved to humans, have developed deeper and deeper and deeper, and at the human level, the deepest level of consciousness, which is our awareness of our thinking, our awareness of the fact that we're an animal, of the space we take up in the world, our physical body, of the effect our actions have on others, things like that, and also like pattern recognition.
How we relate to time.
Yeah, tools, time. Time is a tool.
Time and space.
Time, it's like a measurement. We have so many measurements. We can measure things. It's all deeper down. It's pattern recognition, and it's the use of tools, and it's the use of our hands to manipulate the world. And all of these things we inherited biologically because, according to evolution, survival of the fittest determines our outcome. If we evolve to be this way, and this way is more likely to help us survive, like having stronger muscles. If having stronger muscles is going to help us survive, then we're going to be the one that survives, and we're going to be the one that has kids, and those kids are going to grow up inheriting what we gave them, which would be stronger muscles. And so the organisms that developed a more complex thinking brain were more likely to survive because they could make more discretionary decisions based on more inputs, based on more stimulus. They were able to handle the stresses of the world in a way that helped them live and reproduce. And so, as such, we can look at the specific behaviors that a human being is exhibiting, like crossing their arms, for example. If you cross your arms,
Great example.
it is a behavior that is likely to protect your inner organs behind your rib cage. It keeps you safer. And a lot of people, when they cross their arms, feel a relaxation in their sympathetic nervous system, which is part of your brain. And that relaxation is a mechanism that drives you and motivates you to cross your arms sometimes when you're feeling endangered, when your sympathetic nervous system is triggered or stimulated.
Mm-hmm.
Crossing your arms can help you relax and think more clearly. And so when you see another human being crossing their arms, you can come to the conclusion that they at least may be feeling threatened. They are nervous about something. Their sympathetic nervous system is stimulated. And by paying attention to their physical behaviors in that way, you can almost read their mind. And the practice of doing this is called psychoanalysis. And that's a lot of evidence to me. Even just being able to tell that someone's nervous by crossing their arms helps me think psychoanalysis has got something going on.
Mm-hmm.
Sigmund Freud while he may have been wrong about a lot of things, and we can talk about all those things, if we're talking about this, it's pretty convincing he's probably right. And I have personally used this technique to help examine the people around me and be able to tell if they're lying to me, or maybe they're manipulating me, or maybe they're thinking I'm trying to manipulate them, or that I'm lying to them, and I can tell that they're thinking that, and it helps me be more empathetic.
Right.
Because I wouldn't want to be lied to. So if I can tell someone's acting in a way that's like, oh, they think I'm lying to them, it's like, if I know I'm not lying to them, if I know I'm trying to help them, or if I know I'm just being genuine to them, I'm able to react. I'm able to take in that stimulus and react in a different way.
It's from a deeper place of awareness and
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Yeah. It's like scientific empathy. It's like
it's almost like looking at them like a subject,
right.
which is what almost what science is doing.
It's also looking at myself like a subject.
True.
It's looking at all of life as subjects interacting, like we're on a. Have you ever heard of a petri dish?
I've heard. I don't know exactly.
It's a sterile substrate, which is a substrate is a place to put an observable item.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to observe a cell and you don't want that cell to reproduce wrong or it's like you can put food in the substrate to feed the cell so it'll grow and reproduce if you want those results, or you can put it in there with nothing and it's completely sterile and you'll get different results. It helps control the environment. So it's a tiny little controlled environment without as much outside influence, and you can
encapture
life into it. Yes. You can encapture this life into this separate environment that's not going to alter its course. And then you can study it in a controlled environment. That's part of the scientific method, is controlling the environment so that when your test comes out a certain way, you know it wasn't because of outside influence. Like the placebo effect. They have to account for the placebo effect because they've proven the placebo effect is there. Proven.
Well, it's interesting because if you think about a lot of research, and I've been susceptible to this, it's if you tell someone that there's alcohol in something, especially if they had never drank, because I've had moments I never drank, so I didn't even know.
Right.
So it's like, okay, in this orange juice, there's alcohol, and then at the end of the night, oh, just kidding. We wanted to see how you would act.
Yeah.
If we told you there was alcohol in it, and I sure as hell thought that something was happening.
You felt different.
Yeah,
You didn't just act different.
There was it was a fear. It was like, okay, I don't know what this is like. They're saying there's alcohol in it.
I've seen how people act on
I
alcohol.
wonder what's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm helpless. Was what 14-year-old me was thinking. And then I believe placebo is real.
Yeah. I think it's at least extremely convincing.
Yeah, I agree.
And so when scientists are carrying out experiments that follow the scientific method, especially when they involve medications and chemicals being introduced to the body, which would be a biochemical study, they have a group that doesn't know if they're taking none of the subjects know they're taking the pill. They're told there's a group that's taking the real pill, and let's say it's Viagra. And there's a group that's taking a placebo, and you don't know which group you're in. So when people start taking this placebo and getting erections, it's placebo. They thought, oh, maybe I'm taking the real pill. And even thinking maybe it's a placebo can cause another placebo effect where the people took the Viagra, but they're like, that's probably the placebo, and they still didn't get the erection. So it's like understanding scientifically that the results can be skewed just by the mind.
Yeah, there was another test that I read about where people were saying if you said that there was roaches or bugs in, people would start to get itchy.
Yeah.
If you said there was bugs in the room, people would get itchy.
There's another experiment, Pavlov.
Never heard of it.
I can't remember his first name. Isaac or something like that.
Is it Pavlov?
Yep.
Pavlov.
I think he's Russian or something.
Ivan
Pavlov?
Ivan Pavlov?
What's it say about him? Dogs?
Ivan Pavlov. Russians. What the hell?
Dogs?
Sociologist?
Never heard of that.
Hold up. Sociologist. Let me.
Physiologist?
I'm a fucker, bro. Physiologist. Did I mention how smart we are? Or I am. An expert in or student of the branch of biology that deals with the normal functions of living organisms and their parts.
Physiology in it is. I took a class in high school.
Physiologist.
I took anatomy and physiology in high school.
He's known for his discovery of classical conditioning through his experiments with dogs.
So he put
behaviorism. I know behaviorism.
So here, that's what we're talking about. Behavior is a result of stimulus.
Yes, I'm gonna put. Oh no, human behavior.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tie these all in at the end.
Cool.
Or
so
that'll be mine.
we can kind of get a idea of human behavior and where it comes from by studying other mammals, because we also are mammals. You know what I'm saying? So we're not studying another human, we're studying another mammal.
Which also have emotions.
They also salivate.
They also have desires. There's things that they want.
We salivate when we're hungry.
Defecate.
We salivate when we think we're going to get fed. We salivate when we smell. Yes.
Is that Pavlov?
Pavlov.
Damn it, bro. Pavlov.
He rang the bell when they were fed for a long enough period of time that they connected the stimulus of the bell to being fed. And so even when there was no food, even when there's no way they could have smelled it, there's no way they could have heard them cooking it, there's no way anything could have happened that triggered them to think there was food other than the bell being rang. And it's the same thing as a cat to a can opener.
Right.
It's
same thing as us.
It's a stimulus. And being able to connect the ringing of a bell or something like that, like a sound, a specific type of sound or smell or sensory input, to getting food is so important for mammals, because that's how we survive. If we couldn't smell food, we may not go to the food and eat it. Of course, the thing that can detect where the food is, almost like telecafoodus, they can just smell the food even though it's a mile away. They can smell it. We have a sense that can transport the smell of food. You know, I know there's food over there because I can smell it. That's magic.
Right.
Even though it's science. It's insane that we evolved that ability.
Yes.
And we're not the only ones.
Yeah.
All mammals can smell food. So it's critical that we achieved that upgrade to our biology, because the ones that did that lived. And guess what? That means the ones that can't smell, they're dead. We can't find mammals that aren't able to smell. It's like, I'm sure there's some, but
right, I hear you though.
If they can't smell, it's very likely they have a very powerful other sense. Like bats can't see, even though they have evolved eyes. Why did they evolve eyes? Because they're mammals. They came from mammals. So all mammals have eyes because the first mammal had eyes and everything evolved from it. So the bat couldn't get rid of its eyes. It has eyes, but they're blind. Why? Because it lived in a cave and the eyes stopped working because they were no longer necessary. They started echolocating. So they scream.
And
they can,
the frequency?
They can hear the sound bounce off the wall, so they know how far away the wall is. They can see with their ears. And it's like, okay, so understanding our location and being able to detect our specific location in relation to other objects is so important that even though they already had evolved eyes, when they went into caves and they couldn't see anymore, they evolved another way to see.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's like maximum efficiency. They're getting rid of the brain or just the body is getting rid of everything that it doesn't need.
Yeah. And it's even more proof that evolution, it's just a tiny piece of evidence that evolution is true, because according to evolution, those eyes never would have gone away. Why would God have created bats with eyes that don't see? So unless he was using a means like evolution to create life, just snapping his fingers and making bats out of dust that can't see but they have eyes and they just use their mouth to hear their sight, it's not very logical. It's not there's not a lot of rationality behind it. And if we're believing God is perfect, he's probably rational. And so why would a rational God, other than maybe his only means of creating life was through evolution? He made the first bacteria, and the bacteria evolved into bats, and that was never something he thought of. He just did it.
Yeah, we're just like, I've heard that we're a bad science project.
Yeah, and that would just be like, maybe he's not all powerful. Maybe he's really smart, but he's just not all powerful, and he couldn't exactly control the path of evolution. But it's like, it calls into a lot of question the validity of certain aspects of religion.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't disprove it. It just is like, okay, maybe we don't have the right idea about it. Mm-hmm. It's not saying that God couldn't possibly be true. It's saying the God you're talking about is misdescribed, because when we observe the world we're in, it doesn't line up to what you're saying that your God is. So I'm not saying God's not real. I'm saying you're describing God wrong, or God's not real. those are two possibilities.
Yeah, it opens up new possibilities when science steps in the ring. It's like science is a boxer and religion is a boxer. And
Yes.
they're just fucking fighting.
Yes. And yeah, honestly, religion takes some hits and evolution takes some hits. There's things about evolution that people have said that have been like, okay, fair. I mean, maybe that aspect of evolution is not really what we think it is, but that doesn't mean that we just throw away all of the evidence we have for the aspects of evolution that we are saying is true.
So evolution is being a huge subject under the psychoanalysis category.
I think we evolved psychoanalysis.
Yes, I think that's why psychoanalysis works the way that it does.
Yes.
Is because of, so to say Jordan Peterson again, he talks about he became the lobster king.
Yeah.
Or there is a lobster king already.
You're a normal rat.
Yeah. There's importance to that because what Jordan Peterson is pointing out is that we evolved from lobsters and they have hierarchy structures. So what he's trying to paint out is that we have a lot of unconscious positioning in ourselves of who's better than who's more important than who, how's the power dynamic. There's a bunch of dynamics that are just being set that you might not be entirely aware of. There might be someone's talking to you in a way and you don't know exactly what's happening, but maybe they're talking down to you and you exercising their power against you. They could very well be doing that. In evolution, if you look at other animals, like Seth was saying, you can see where other animals came from, and you can see how their psychology has changed throughout the centuries. You can see, or the thousands of years, millions of years. You can see, because if you see where everything started from, you get a better scope as to where humans started from. And when you see where humans started from, there's a lot more emotions that make sense. There's a lot more social situations that make sense. There's a lot more things about your behavior that start to connect. There's a reason. If you're feeling anxious or depressed or angry or stressed on a normal basis, there is a reason.
There's a stimulus.
There is a stimulus. And even if it is physical pain or maybe you have this is where depression gets tricky because if they just say it's a condition, it's like, okay, well, my brain isn't working properly. There's nothing I can do. That's not helpful thinking. It's like, what do you do in that situation genuinely?
And depression is shown to a lot of times be as a result of something very physical that we can't see, like a deficiency.
Right.
Like you're vitamin D deficient, and it's causing depression. And it's hard to know exactly what you might be deficient in. But something you can do to help your deficiency at least a little bit is maintain a wider variety and of healthy dietary intake. So like avocados, for example.
Right.
I like avocados. Avocados are very nutritious, and they pack a
avocado
lot.
sticker.
Oh yeah, we're all family here.
Yeah, we love avocado.
Avocado is nutrient dense. It has a lot of things that maybe you're deficient in it. So if you eat it, it's covering a wide array of bases. If you don't know what you're deficient in, eating a food that has a lot of the things necessary for life in it might cover the base that you're missing. And maybe it won't. But you can tell what you're missing because if you know what's in avocado and it's covering 10 of the 26 bases, there's 26 bases. If it's covering 10 and you're still feeling depressed, maybe it's some of the other 16, and so you need to eat a different food and attempting it and just not having the mentality. I think this is the biggest thing David's getting across here is not having the mentality that it's impossible to fix, but that you just need to try something new is not helpful. If you think there's nothing I can try to fix this, it's out of my control, and it's not your fault. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying it's within your control to change.
Right. I'm not going to let too many opinions out right this second.
If you never ate a good diet, that's maybe a little bit your fault.
It's like if you claim that you've been – I'm going to let some of the opinions out. If you claim that you've been depressed for like 10 years. This is like an extreme example. I'm taking it to an extreme. But even a year, depending on the person, might be mind-boggling to me. My argument is that you should be the absolute healthiest version of yourself before you claim that there's nothing you can do. Until you are doing something like that, I'm not convinced. Until you are trying, if it means that much to you, and it has to. Because really, how are you living in your life if it doesn't mean anything to you?
I have been to 1,000 doctor's appointments.
I know, you were telling me about that.
Not just for myself, with other people. And every time the doctors, they may offer a medication, but if they're offering a medication, they are also offering a healthier diet.
Drink more water.
And exercise. So
sleep.
Someone who's going through depression, I've heard it from 1,000 different doctor's appointments. Not 1,000 doctors, but at least 25 different doctors. That a good diet, a healthy amount of sleep, a healthy amount of water, and a healthy amount of exercise, which is getting your heart rate above 120 BPM for 30 minutes, at least 5 times a week. That is specifically the regimen they recommend, is going to improve your health. I've heard it from so many doctors, and maybe you don't trust doctors. I don't trust some doctors, but when I've heard it from 25 different doctors, it's pretty convincing, and it also makes sense. And I've tried it, and it does help. And I've been in places in my life where I was depressed, and I felt like I had no way out.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was told by doctors that if I try these things, it might help. And I tried them, all of them, in as consistent of a way as I could manage, because I've been limited on budget, and that can make it hard to eat healthy. I've been limited on budget. That can make it hard to go do specific types of exercises, like to have a gym membership. But it doesn't mean you can't go run. Running is free. Walking is free. Push-ups are free.
Drinking more water.
So maybe the biggest
Hopefully free
obstacle,
for you.
yeah, I mean, clean drinking water, not everyone has that. It's a privileged perspective, I guess, to say that
Right.
drink clean water, because some people can't. But if you live in the United States, the majority of us have access to clean water. I think maybe the biggest obstacle would be a lush diet, a wide variety of foods.
Moderate exercise, good sleep.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if you don't have access to that, it's a huge imperative.
A creative outlet,
If you
ideally.
Yeah. I mean, if you want the outcome to be that you have a better life.
Which it should be.
Yeah.
I would hope that is your goal.
Yeah. I mean.
Because I can't imagine the alternative.
Right. It only makes sense to me that you'd want to have a better life, because that's what I want. So, I mean, if I'm relating to you, I imagine you want a better life. And a path to a better life just always includes a better diet, better sleep, more water. Maybe not more water, but
It depends on how much water you're drinking, for sure.
Yeah, but and what was the last one?
I
Exercise.
said a creative outlet would be
Oh,
dope.
yeah. I mean, and that's a thing. I think the more I invested in my diet, and the more I invested in exercise, and the more I invested in the right amount of sleep, the more interested I've become in the things that fulfill me, that are creative. And a lot of evidence that goes into that is that, like we said, under certain stimuli, you will feel a certain way. Your sympathetic nervous system will react to certain stimuli. Some of the stimuli that lead to a depressed or anxious sympathetic nervous system, or that state of it, is deficiency and lack of exercise and lack of clean water and lack of sleep. So if you want to be more creative, getting your sympathetic nervous system into a relaxed state by exercising, drinking water, eating right, sleeping enough, or routinely as well. Sleep needs to be a certain amount and a certain routine, because you can't just sleep all over the place and expect your sleep to be good. But doing those things to help nourish your chemical reaction you've got going inside your body, your whole body is it, will put you in a state that is less depressed, less anxious, and more creative. and then doing the creative things will also further that state. You know?
Yes, I agree. And it ties into your psychology because your quality of life determines your thoughts. Your quality of life determines your behavior. Quality of life is very important.
Mm-hmm.
It's natural to want to live a better life than you are living, or at least to live a good life, especially if you've been in a bad life. And I imagine if you're depressed, you have experienced or are inside right now at this very moment, whether it be denial or not, in a bad moment or part of your life that you want to change. And it ties a lot into psychoanalysis
Mm-hmm.
because when you're going through a rough spot, you develop different habits. You might put things off. You might accept more laziness. You might just care less about everything. And when you begin to care less about everything, you start to develop habits in that mentality. So now it's not just that it's not just that it's one bad habit. Everything becomes a bad habit. Your life is a series of bad habits. And you can pull yourself out of that, especially with awareness. Awareness is a double-sided blade because it reveals, which is powerful. It shows you that maybe you're more capable than you think you are. And the thing that a lot of people don't like about that, something that I personally don't like about it, is that it pushes almost like an obligation onto you. It's like a duty. This is how I've digested it. It's a duty to myself. I have been in depressed episodes. I have had low moments of self-worth. I have had horrible spots in my life that I would not want to repeat. But when I was in those moments, it made me create very firm decisions for myself as to how I want to live my life, the things that I want to start doing, and at that time, more importantly, the things that I wanted to stop doing. It was an awareness of myself and being honest with myself that led me to paving a new way of habits and how I live my life. And downward spirals exist. Tate said this. Downward spirals exist, but upward spirals also exist. And there is a way of rewiring yourself, essentially. I don't know what condition you have. I don't know what's going on with you. I could be the most privileged person on the planet because I have a working able body in every way, and I don't feel a lot of pain on average. Like, I can admit that. But I believe that human power is undeniable and unbelievable. I think we have a lot of ability in ourselves to change. There's a lot of people that say that people can't change. I don't agree with that. I believe almost everybody can change. And I believe it's with tools like psychoanalysis and what they dip into. Like evolution is important. Like Seth was saying, it shows you where we came from, and it shows you where maybe a lot of your patterns and behaviors are stemming from. Biology is important because these are holding hands. It's not just that you've changed, but it's that you are something that's already been here. You're a clump of cells, essentially, as bad as that may sound. It explains human behavior. And human behavior is literally what we got from putting these two together. Human behavior is very important because if you can analyze your behavior and you can remain honest with yourself, you can change it. And then this goes into your philosophy and decisions. Because once you go into a habit and establish new habits, what you're doing, this is what, on average, the most amount of people do, is they defend and create a narrative that justifies them into this behavior. They can't just go into this behavior and then also think that it's wrong, because then they're going to think they're worthless. That's when the depression really grips them. That's when nihilism really grips them. But if they justify it and go into denial, they just think they're not in despair, and they are. Soren Kierkegaard had a great quote about that. He was like, it's usually when people don't think they're in despair at all that they're at the worst part, or the most people in despair.
Mm-hmm.
And psychoanalysis is an important tool in my life. one of, if not the most important tools in my life. And it's also something that me and Seth connected on a lot, especially when we first met. It was something that Seth had all of the bottom of the iceberg. You know, like the 80% of the iceberg that's on the bottom? That's the iceberg. That's literally what psychoanalysis is. The conscious and... Are you going to draw it out?
Yeah.
So the conscious and the unconscious is put into an analogy of an iceberg. And what it is it's saying, this is the water. Everything below the water of the iceberg that you're not going to be able to see whenever he draws it here real quick is what's unknown to you, what's unseen to you, it's more impulse. And then the top of the iceberg right here is what you actually can see. And this was revolutionary to think about at the time because nobody had thought about things happening to human behavior outside of their own will. Obviously, emotions exist. Obviously, passions exist. But you could be aware of all of these things. It was saying there's nothing in the background. There's nothing happening below the surface of the water that you otherwise may not be seeing. And as Seth, I love this fucking thing. Seth had the upper, Seth had the lower 80%. And what's crazy is Seth almost damn near had the entire upper 20%. He just didn't literally see the upper part of he was going to sink the Titanic. Like, he, as soon as he saw this, he was like, oh. So all this other information that I have up to this point clicked in now.
It's kind of like I saw all of this, but this had never really been pointed out to me.
And it's crazy because then you condense all of these concepts into an organized... It's like having little jars.
Yeah.
The little jars
Yeah.
that you're pulling out. And then this is the cabinet that it's in.
Well,
or psychology really would be
it's
what
like
science.
you pull out all four of these jars and you take out a
It's not
tiny...
under science. Sorry.
Yeah, well...
Well, no, because ego is something that can't be measured exactly. So
Okay,
it's
well,
technically...
I'm going to say it here.
If you're 100%...
I'm going to say it here. All of science was once hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's very new sciences these days. And Sigmund Freud, when was he around?
The 1800s to the early 1900s.
A couple hundred years ago, we came up with a very hypothetical idea. And there are people today and for the last couple hundred years who have been testing this idea. And it's very theoretical. We don't have 2,000 years worth of evidence for it, but we also don't have 2,000 years of scientific exploration and evolution. So it's very theoretical.
They literally came out around the same time.
Right.
Which would make sense.
It's like this fed into this.
Biology fed
this
into evolution.
fed into this, fed into this.
So
fed into
philosophy
this.
and decisions fed into biology, which then fed into evolution.
And then this.
And then, was it psychoanalysis and then human behavior? Or was it human behavior and then psychoanalysis?
I think it was behavior in general, evolutionary behavior, instinct, understanding that.
Biological behavior? Or is that just the same thing?
It's like, because we studied biology, we came to the conclusion of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
We studied animals, we studied plants, we studied life, and we came to the conclusion through the study of all those living things that evolution was a thing. Mm-hmm. And as a result of concluding evolution was a thing, we started looking at instinct and behavior in all animals, and we looked at behavior of animals, and then more specifically human behavior. And then psychoanalysis is not just for humans. Psychoanalysis can be applied and studied through all animals.
So, psychoanalysis, by definition, is you're analyzing something.
Yes.
You're analyzing a psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And you're attempting to keep it as objective as possible. It's like what you said. Whenever somebody crosses their arms, you said it's likely, or it seems as though they're being... Now, literally what
You can take a guess.
What it communicates through their biology is that they are defending their organs objectively.
Right.
You can't take that from them.
Right.
However, are they doing
They
it...
might be comfortable. I don't know.
Are they doing it manipulatively? Do they know that? Do
Right.
they know it makes them look
Right.
more defensive?
I crossed my arms on
Yes.
the
Just to
podcast
use that
just
as
as an example. So
Maybe someone comes in and says, oh, he's uncomfortable. He's like, no, he's not. He's actually making an example about doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
So either way, we have a lot of very convincing evidence that shows that psychoanalysis is
Credible?
a
Useful?
it's worth looking at.
Yeah.
It's worth testing. It's being tested. And we're getting results that point to the reality that it's at least to some degree true. So to say it's not science, it's not a science. Well, it doesn't say ology. It's not saying it's a science. It's a practice. Psychoanalysis is a behavior. It's a tool.
This makes me want to say this. You guys know this has been in American culture for a while now, but it's like the therapist that shows you blobs of images, and they're like, what is this?
The ink blot.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The ink blot,
Yeah.
yes. They have it in cartoons and they have it in shows. That is a psychoanalytical practice.
And when people use psychoanalytical practices, they often make psychological breakthroughs with their patients. And that's not to say, because we all know the horror stories about asylums.
Trauma from those.
Just, yeah, the
prisons.
Psychologists of
Are
the...
you saying just insanity?
Just when it comes to psychology.
Oh, okay.
Psychology has been used as a justification to carry out tests on animals and human beings that were just even doing the test on them, while you may have had a justification because you wanted to get a result that proved your theory about psychoanalysis or psychology, it doesn't mean that it was ethical to carry out these tests, like the lobotomy. The lobotomy was a surgical practice that was done by psychologists that didn't have to be surgeons because it was so non-invasive that they could take a pick and put it next to your eyeball and hammer it into your brain and turn off your prefrontal cortex. And so you just were tame. So these people who were insane.
Domesticated?
Yeah, these people who had deep psychological issues, they began with them. And they proved that this thing could make these people tame. And so then people were bringing their wife in who was just bitchy on her period.
Holy fuck.
And having their wife lobotomized and shit like that. So it's just like, it's led to a lot of very questionable ethical practices. However, a lot of science has led to that. So let's not throw science out. The fortunate thing that we can take from these horrific historical things is that there was data collected. So even though it sucks that the data was collected the way it was, we still have it, and those people's deaths were in vain if we don't use it. And or not, maybe not even deaths. Maybe they were like a lobotomized person. They live out their life with no prefrontal cortex, and they're just drooling bags of meat.
Zombies.
It's like, that sucks. And it's horrible that happened. And if we don't use the information that we got from the studies that people were doing during that, I can't remember the guy's name. There was a guy that popularized the lobotomy, and he was just so sure of its efficacy. But if we don't use that data to help us understand the human mind more now, then, what did those people go through those tests for? It's like, clearly there was such a problem that we needed to test such a drastic measure.
Walter Jackson Freeman II?
And it's like, at the time it was seen as very tame, because a lot other methods people were doing was like electrocuting people's heads and things like that. They were trying to electrocute the gay out of people. There's a lot of shit that...
Wow.
It's like...
In any measure.
Yeah.
Any measure.
So psychology kind of ran rampant, and people who were very unscientific were given the reins. And it kind of gives psychology as a science a very bad rap, and it's said that it's not so scientific. And I would say it's not been treated so scientifically by the people who were purporting it. But
that's why a lot of people discredit Carl Jung.
Yeah. I don't know if he carried out a lot of experiments. Carl Jung had some great ideas. I've also heard that he believed that black people were a primitive...
Carl Jung?
Were a primitive evolutionary, like a predecessor to white people.
I didn't...
Like, we had evolved from them, and we were more
So we were just further along in the
Yes.
evolutionary chain.
Something like that. And here I am calling him
Carl
out for
Jung
this.
on black people.
Yes, we should look this up because I don't know how true it is. Because Carl Jung also theorized archetypes, and
But I love the idea of I would make a whole episode out of archetypes.
yeah, we can talk about a whole
I
episode of archetypes.
absolutely love archetypes. The racism of Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm.
How have I never heard of this? Pointed to several instances of racism in Jung's writing, aimed mostly at Africans, but also Indians and Arabs.
Arabs.
What?
Arabic people.
Was one of the best-known psychologists of the 20th century. He introduced such famous concepts as introverted and extroverted personalities, which I think are important concepts.
Yeah.
And the idea of the psychological complex. You know what a complex is?
A complex is like a disorder, right? Or like
It's
a
it's like a jumbling of either ideas or emotions or all of them. Like it's a jumbling of psychological phenomena all in one spot. Today, Jungian analytical psychology retains an active community, but come on. Where's the racist Jung?
I want to hear how he
Apologize for the failures of Jungians to confront the fact. In this piece, opens several instances of racism in Jung's writing, aimed at mostly. Okay, come on, just give me the info. Defense is adequate, although people will have to judge that for themselves. Is this Carl Jung? An incident of the life of a bushman may illustrate that I mean a point about identity of subject to object. A bushman had a little son whom he loved with the tender monkey love characteristic of primitives. Psychologically, this love is completely autoerotic. Autoerotic.
autoerotic.
That is to say, the
Self-pleasing.
subject loves himself in the object. The object serves as a sort of erotic mirror. One day, the bushman came home in a rage. He had been fishing as usual and caught nothing. As usual, the little fellow came running to meet him, but his father seized hold of him and wrung his neck on the spot. Afterwards, of course, he mourned for the dead child with the same unthinking abandon that had brought about his death. I don't know what that's in context to.
Yeah, that's hard to.
Yeah, thanks, Jung. But I hear what you're saying. I'm gonna look further into it.
Yeah, it's something to look into.
But
for
it's
sure.
at least a category.
Yeah.
And also, I wanna read what a complex is real quick because I cannot just let myself gloss over that.
Like a god complex or
yes.
an inferiority complex.
Yes. In Jungian psychology, I bet is what it's gonna say.
Jungian.
Jungian.
I like onions.
What is a complex? Jung describes a complex as a node in the unconscious. It may be imagined as a knot of unconscious feeling and beliefs detectable indirectly through behavior that is puzzling or hard to account for. Now that's so vague that people immediately, not only did they chop him from science, they chop him from even being taken seriously.
It's very hypothetical.
He's very mystical. He's fine with mysticism. He's fine with...
A knot in the...
Well, he says detectable indirectly, which is hard to... It's untangible. He's very openly...
We're not able to look at
yes.
this knot in psychology.
And it's almost like an ego... A lot of people think it's just an ego trip. He's like, everybody sees it this way because I see it this way. And everybody knows about this thing that they're just not talking about. And it's like... Jung thinks he's above, and that's like offends scientists. They're like, no, you're not above, you're below, bro.
Maybe even was willing to say he has a complex.
Right.
He's just describing
He would
a
totally
phenomenon.
say that. Right. And people like to discredit him for reasons like this. Detectable indirectly through behavior that is puzzling or hard to account for. Another vague thing. It's defined as something that is puzzling. It's defined as something that's hard. It's not a clear cut as to what it is. It's like...
It's when it does not fit into the lines that were developed through scientific psychoanalysis, through, when psychologists were observing their psychological patients and coming up with which behaviors indicated which psychological states. So crossing the arms indicates a certain state. Well, what if somebody's crossing their arms, but it's every other indicator says they're not anxious? So it's like now it's puzzling. Now it doesn't fit into our predetermined scheme, which not only potentially calls into question psychoanalysis, because it's saying that, sometimes when we psychoanalyze somebody's behavior, it points to the opposite of things. So maybe psychoanalysis isn't as reliable as they once deemed. Because if Jung is saying, okay, these people who are doing these things that don't quite fit into psychoanalysis, they must have a complex. They must have a tangling somewhere, because it's not really fitting with what we usually observe. So it's like going with averages.
And then he says things like synchronicity. It's like a word that he coined, and it's something that can't be proven. It's something that can't even quite be measured.
But what is proven is...
Can we define synchronicity?
Yeah, sure.
Synchronicity is a very powerful concept. There's not a whole lot of validity in it. That people argue there's not a lot of validity in it. It's a really great Police album. Hold on. Synchronicity. I know pretty much the basic concept of synchronicity. Synchronicity is the idea that seemingly unrelated events can be meaningfully connected, even though there's no clear cause or evidence that one event led to the other. I bet that's not how Jung tried to define it.
I feel like he's pointing out something people are doing less than he's pointing out that they're correct.
So he's pointing out the behavior.
He's pointing out the fact that people see things around them and make deeper meaning out of it and deeper connections.
Well, let's give a great example. Where's that marker? Sure, because you're going to know exactly.
Yeah. Numbers. 222. 333. 1111. Make a wish.
This is how my friend group, our friend group, most understands and utilizes what synchronicity means.
And it could be more than just numbers. Numbers are a type of symbol, but it could be that you see dragons everywhere or something.
It's like whenever you and me and Noah were walking trying to get something to eat somewhere, and everywhere was closed, and then you saw a sign on a door that said, try the next door.
Yeah.
And it's like you were making a connection of like, oh, wow, literally that statement is communicating what's happening to us right now. I see the connection there. It feels like narrator meets subject.
Yeah, the stimulus in my brain is like, whoa, the universe is talking to me.
And that's when...
And that sounds
unscientific.
Mystical.
Unscientific.
But that's the thing, is he's talking about the fact that people do that.
Right.
And that's, to me, proven because I do it.
Right, but then the argument of science, at least as far as I'm aware, is that it's not something that can be tangibly measured.
I mean, you could survey people and ask, how often do you feel like the universe is speaking to you, and when does that happen?
This is where the skeptics of science come out, because they're like, well, we don't know who's lying. We don't know. It's like we're trusting them on the individual level, which makes it seem unnoteworthy to some scientists. It's not reliable evidence because people are skewed, might not get the full picture. And then it's like, well, you're skewed as well because you're also human.
I mean,
it can't be measured.
Anecdotally,
so it's not science.
Anecdotally, I have met people who buy into semiotic inputs. Semiotic being symbolic.
Symbolic, yes.
Yeah,
symbolism.
Like, for example, my mother, there was a time where she was like very interested in Dave Grohl. And Dave Grohl,
we just talked about him.
Yeah. Dave Grohl
cheated on his wife.
Sees meaning in the number 606.
Yeah.
And so my mom started seeing 606 everywhere. And anytime she saw 606, it was meaning something to her. It was a sign. She would ask God to play a song on the radio. And if that song played on the radio, it was her sign. People look for signs to make certain decisions or not, because they're uncertain about which decision to make.
Yes.
And so they're looking for a cue from the universe. And I have just personally experienced a great number of people buying into this, taking signs from the universe and making decisions based on those signs. And that, for me, is a lot of evidence. Maybe we haven't done a study, but I've experienced other people doing it.
Yeah, symbolic thinking, which is really, it's what the archetypes resemble.
Mm-hmm.
Which, God, bro, we could have a whole episode about fucking
Archetypes and symbols, yes.
Yes, the shadow and the persona, and
Carl Jung discovered archetypes.
Carl Jung was very obsessed with
Or his
symbolism.
belief in them through psychoanalysis.
And studying of history, looking back, he would look back to ancient religious or sacrificial moments, and there would be like a symbol. It's like, why is there why?
And he's psychoanalyzing the
He's
past.
Very like, why are human beings right? What do these symbols mean? Why are they important enough to jot down? Why did we keep them? Why did they feel important enough to keep them?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, he made the claim that the cross was the most symbolic image in the
West, maybe.
Well, he said in the human psyche, because religion took over it was at 8 to 19 centuries at that point.
I don't know. I think maybe the sun would be a more prevalent symbol.
Fair.
There's things that might be more prevalent. Fire, water. But the cross is huge. It's the most unnatural symbol that has become so prevalent. It's like, it's not naturally symbolic. It's narratively symbolic.
True. I guess my only thing would be, it's like, how did human beings, because it's a simple symbol.
True.
It's unbelievably simple. You can literally even...
It's like a plus sign with extra length on the bottom.
You could literally just do this. You don't even have to give it anything extra. Like, that is a symbol in itself.
We recognize it.
Yeah, people know what that is. Bro, I seen, whenever we were playing Minecraft, I was like, oh, someone put a cross on the ground.
Yeah,
It's like, just because it looked like that. It's very simple of a...
I would say part of that is because we grew up in the West.
Mm.
If you wrote that down on a piece of paper and gave it to somebody in a rural place in Asia where they didn't get much, there's parts of
exposure.
There's parts of the world that aren't systematically educated or anything like that. Mm-hmm. They don't get exposed to the world much. They're farmers. They're just farming every day. And they might be religious because they had religion passed to them, and their religion is Buddhism. And they've never even heard of Christianity. Mm. It's possible. I'm sure there are people. I'm very sure, but I don't know for sure.
Carl Jung quote, "It seems to have been one of the most original intuitions of man that the right form to express the source of mana would be the cross." Isn't mana energy?
Yeah, internal, like spiritual energy.
And that's very fundamental.
So he's looking at humans from a very long time ago, but where were they? When did the cross first? Was it not Christianity that first used the cross symbolically?
You can hit that.
I would love to find out the source of the cross as a symbol.
Where did the cross originate? I will say we've been going on a lot of tangents. Which is fine, but
we're still discussing psychoanalysis.
I agree. It's under that. I don't think I've gotten to any of the questions about psychoanalysis.
We can definitely get into that. If we want to talk about the symbology of the cross.
Right, like
sometime
this,
then.
Because I feel like these are like bigger topics that we're going to get to anyway.
Yeah.
And I know that we like to
touch and then
there's a lot. We're like swimming through information. So we're like, oh, dude, this topic.
Or it's hard for us to touch on it and then just get away from it. Yeah.
But I think specific questions would help with that. Mm-hmm. And then also having a list of future topics for us to look at. Mm-hmm. Ancient Egypt.
I believe that. You know where?
Ancient Babylon.
You know where Jesus was born?
Israel.
No.
Am I Jerusalem?
Bethlehem.
I'm a fucker, bro.
Egypt.
Bethlehem. Yeah, I'm gonna be doing a lot. I hope you guys all know. Let me just make this clear. I realized that being on a mic in front of a camera and talking shit puts I have to back up a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be doing a lot of due diligence. I will be doing a lot of researching and writing and looking into the things that I'm just saying. And if I say something that I find out later I was wrong about, or it came out wrong and I didn't explain it properly, I don't mind getting called out. I don't mind calling myself out and pointing it out. It's like,
I mean, that's part of why he's willing to have me sitting here to even be like, hey, you know where this city is or where Jesus was born? And
right.
and he's willing to accept that maybe he didn't know the right answer.
Right. And it sucks too, because I'm starting to hold like firmer ground when the question of Jesus and religion and all that is brought up. There's still points that I could make regardless of where I knew exactly where he was born. I know that is relevant to the story.
I also say Jesus of Nazareth, but I think that was like not. I don't even know what Nazareth is, to be honest.
I didn't say Nazareth because I knew that. I've heard Jesus of Nazareth. Bethlehem. Okay. Let me get to this first question real quick. About psychoanalysis. So what is psychoanalysis, which we did great.
Yeah.
I think that was fine. We touched on, so that's a lie. I did the first question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you psychoanalyze other people?
Psychoanalyzing a person and getting a deep or a complex level of understanding about them takes a lot of time and a lot of interacting with them. And it just goes into what they say, how they say it, what their body language is when they're saying it, what the tone in their voice is when they say it, the volume, and coming to an understanding of what's going on inside their mind and in their body day to day that leads them to speak the way they speak and behave the way they behave. And this can be valuable because it can help you detect a person's intentions, and
it can help you empathize with where they're coming from.
I was going to say it can also help you understand how they're feeling about you and what you're doing and what you're saying to them, which can help you determine how to behave toward them. Because if your goal is to cooperate with them, then
I can't imagine why I wouldn't be.
It's like, never to say that you should behave inauthentically, but sometimes your first instinct for how to behave isn't the most beneficial if you're trying to cooperate with somebody and you've got to compromise inside yourself with what decisions you're going to make and how you're going to behave towards someone. If you want them to value you and if you want to cooperate with them. So honestly, a lot of the time it's helpful to be honest with them about how you instinctually feel. There's times where me and David will be like, right now I want to direct this at you, but I'm understanding it's not at you, things like that. And be honest about what's really going on inside of your own mind, but then be clear that you're choosing a different path because you want to communicate to them that you're cooperating with them. Communication is huge. Psychoanalysis helps with communication because if you're paying attention to what's going on with another person when when you're with them, how they're behaving and how they're talking and what they're saying, if you're really giving a lot of thought and attention to this person, then it's easier to communicate what you're actually trying to communicate to them. Partially because it's easier to understand what they're trying to communicate to you. And I think we all know communication. If you don't know this already, communication is huge. And it can be unproductive or it can be productive. And mostly for selfish reasons, honestly. It's like, selfishly, I want cooperative relationships with my friends and my family, etc., my colleagues. And so if I want that, I have to behave a certain way. That's part of persona. It's like I have to place myself into a certain persona to cooperate with other people. And with your friends, especially your closest friends, especially the ones that know about psychoanalysis and know about human behavior, you can let down the persona and say, this is really how I'm feeling, but that's not what I'm going to do.
Yes,
your friends can understand that it's like, okay, he's just telling me the animal inside him.
He's like letting it out.
Yeah, they're just telling me what's going on inside, but they're not going to act on that. They're just communicating.
It's like being honest with yourself.
Yeah, sometimes there's a storm in here, and it's like you can tell your friends about the storm inside without raining on them.
I agree. It's almost like you're exercising it right there so it doesn't have to get worse.
Right.
It's like sometimes there's a line to that even.
Yeah.
Because you can let out a lot of anger in just a little moment and let them know you're angry.
And, you can also be pretty, you can almost be like martyr for them. And I would say I have this instinct sometimes, and I don't know if other people do, but it's like, I don't mind if I get rained on a little bit. They're my friend. They're just trying to communicate with me. And, like, sometimes that'll, I don't know, push past a certain line. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be willing to let myself get rained on at all by their storm. But it's like,
I think it depends.
I'm trying to have empathy for my friends. And I'm trying to just understand that this is the storm inside them. And, I don't know, being there for your friends means sometimes you'll get rained on a little bit by their storm.
And this is you psychoanalyzing them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're saying, okay, I understand they're not trying to insult me.
Yes.
They're not trying. And you have to be honest, too, for when people are doing that.
Right. And empathize with that. It's like, okay, he's not understanding me. And he has a storm inside him that's telling him where the shelter is. And he finds his shelter from the storm. If we're just making this David finds his shelter from the storm when he's writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so David might think about other people. He might not understand, why aren't they writing all the time? And I don't think David does that. But someone who finds their shelter in a specific behavior, like writing, might look at others and be like, they should write all the time. And that's another part of psychoanalysis.
Yeah. And it's harder.
Yeah.
Because that means you have to seek self-denial.
Yeah.
Which is in itself a paradox.
Yeah. Because then it's like, maybe writing as a shelter from my storm isn't so tangible and real as I think it is.
Maybe it's not for everybody.
It just applies to me, or maybe just some portion of humanity or whatever. But it's like, everyone has a different storm. Everyone has different shelter inside them. And it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's like especially with your friends. I think it's so important with your friends. Understanding each other deeply and your mind and your psychology. It's like you can build your shelters to meet. So that you're like, when you reach toward each other in your minds through conversation or whatever, you're not, I don't have to step out into the rain to get under your shelter. Like we built our fortress.
It's like a bridge
together. Yeah.
I agree.
And then it's like we both have more ground to stand on without getting rained on.
I agree. And it's a healthy compromise.
Yeah.
Psychoanalysis is, or how do you psychoanalyze others? I would say my favorite variable to measure is the condition that they're in. Well, the environment that they're in. I love to see someone in a work setting for a while and to see them, and there are variables that are different there as well. Is it busy? Is it slow? How many people are there? Who are the people there? It's like there's a lot of things to be measured there. But usually there's an overall average of how this person acts at work.
Mm-hmm.
But then the variable of the environment might change. So it's like, hey, we're all going out, we're going here, and now you get to see a completely different side of them.
Mm-hmm.
You get to see a side of them that is exposed to different things, and you get to see how well adjusted they are to these new variables, and you get to see if it intimidates them or if they're just as comfortable as if just as comfortable as they are at work.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. And I've seen a lot of. There was one example. I'm not going to drop a name, but this person was fairly charismatic at work.
Mm.
And then on a pretty normal basis, he was in a bad mood sometimes, but for the most part, he was in a good mood and he was uplifting. But then we had him go out with us, and he was there for maybe 10 minutes. He walked over to us, showed that he was there, went up to the bar to grab a drink, he said, and then he left. And he didn't say a thing about it. And he didn't say anything, and that's very revealing. That shows me their psychology.
Yeah. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yes, I think. And then what really goes to and then the next day he says something along the lines of, "Sorry, bro, I just wasn't in it, this and that." And that's fine. You can do whatever you want. If you don't want to be there, you can leave. That's then your freedom. But you are revealing to me what your priorities were in that moment, and what your decisions were in that moment. And it's like, you could have. Let me be real careful with my words here. There's a lot of different There's a lot of different paths to take of the way that you did it, and it's all a question of your philosophy and your priorities. He could have A, came up to the group and said he was leaving. He could have B, just left the way that he did. He could have C, stuck around and not hung out around us, which has been very revealing.
Yeah.
And then 4, he could have stayed the whole time and then hung out with us. And in any of those situations, he's revealing a different part of his psychology to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see the route that he took. The route is he didn't tell anybody. Maybe he told 1 or 2 person off on the side, but he did not tell the big group. He left and decided not to say anything, at least not to me or anybody else in our friend group. And then the next day apologize about it and say he wasn't in it. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. I don't have any problems with that. I just know you more as a person now. And I don't mean that from, well, by definition, it's judgmental. I'm gauging.
Making a judgment about.
I am. Yeah. But I'm trying to be as objective as possible about, okay, your behavior, when you were plugged into X circumstance, I got Y result.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened. Is that to say I would never invite him out again? No, that's not at all what I'm saying. But I am saying that I have at least more of an educated guess about who he is as a person because of that behavior.
Mm-hmm. It may mean that the first time he ever goes out with people, that's how he is. And then maybe every other time after that, it's to be completely different.
And that would reveal a ton.
Yeah.
That would be a very crucial, in my opinion, aspect of his psychology.
Yeah.
You'd be like, okay, so you go somewhere and commit for the first interaction that's required of you, and then you scurry out the side. This is how you develop trust. And it's like, okay, what happened to you to where you develop trust like that?
Right.
Why do you develop trust like that?
Yes.
What has happened, or what have you believed to work for you, or you're too scared to confront to this point? There's a whole bunch of variables.
Testing the waters, dipping your toe in.
Yes.
And not diving in.
Or somebody that dives in, or someone that does something in the middle, or somebody that puts their legs in, waits 10 minutes, and then goes the rest of the way in. It's like, either way, there's an infinite amount of ways to do any of these things.
Yeah.
And
some people never get in the pool. Different
environments paint out very well how someone's mind works.
Mm-hmm.
It introduces different challenges. It's like I'm fine with talking about Tyler. Taking Tyler to karaoke. Put him in a situation where he was forced to psychologically reveal himself. Because we are in a position to be like, yo, you going to do karaoke? So now he has 2 options. We have presented him with something. He can either decline and say, no, I don't want to do that, which is revealing.
Yeah.
Even if he gives an excuse, even if anything, it reveals something about him. Or he can get behind the mic and do it, which reveals something as well, which are very strong statements. It's like, I never would have guessed that about him if we wouldn't have done that.
And it's like he could have not gone on the mic.
And he did, and he killed it.
Yeah, he did do it.
He's a DJ.
He could have not, yeah.
DJ Berserk.
Berserk.
Is what he said.
Yes. DJ Berserk.
I hope it's not Berserker.
No, it's Berserk.
Okay. DJ Berserk. Richmond's DJ.
Berserk. We can spell.
We're really smart, by the way.
True.
Valid.
So maybe it's like he could have not picked up the mic that time and not picked up the mic the next 5 times, and maybe on the 6th time he'd do one song with somebody else, and then eventually maybe he had just never done it before. There's different ways we're going to behave, and part of the circumstances can be a lack of experience. But maybe he'd been asked, he could have not picked it up, and he'd been asked to do karaoke 1,000 times and just will never pick it up. Maybe that was the first time anybody had ever asked him to do karaoke. I don't know. He may have done karaoke before.
Yeah, right.
It's like we don't know his level of experience. So that's another thing you can potentially determine is if they never picked up the mic, you could say maybe they've never been in this situation before.
And if somebody ever asked me outside looking in, they're like, does Tyler ever sing with you guys? I can say, we have went 10 times, and not a single time has he. Has he ever? I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be like,
right.
But I have formed a consensus from his behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
So public situations versus work settings are golden for psychoanalysis.
Mm-hmm. And then also at home.
At home is great. At home is really vulnerable.
Yeah.
You get to see how someone keeps their living space.
And then, like, okay, we've been inside Tyler's house, but we've never lived with him.
Right.
It's like getting to know somebody and the way they live day to day can be, and how it changes.
Right.
It's like if I've lived with David now for fucking a year and a half.
Feels longer.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's not exactly the same as when we started. There are some things that are,
right.
But David's psychology has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing how someone's psychology can shift using psychoanalysis over a long period of time and a lot of interaction.
Well, psychoanalysis, especially of yourself, is painful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when you psychoanalyze yourself, you are assessing your behavior, and maybe the reason that you're behaving in a certain way will reveal something about you that you don't like. Maybe you are crossing your arms more often than you think because you're defensive often because you're in a living situation that makes you feel defensive and you don't like your living situation.
Mm-hmm.
So just you paying attention to you being defensive will come to the conclusion that you're not happy with your life, and you don't want to come to that conclusion. So you won't look at how you're defensive.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's hard to tell exactly why you're defensive all the time. Mm-hmm. It's something about your living situation, but you can't necessarily always tell exactly what. You could feel defensive, which is like anxious.
Defensive and anxious?
Threatened?
Yeah. Threatened, yes. And anxiety comes from feeling threatened.
You can feel threatened from a chemical imbalance. You can feel threatened because you are literally threatened by maybe a lack of vitamin D. Mm-hmm. And then you can treat people defensively because you are lacking vitamin D. And they're not going to get it. They're not going to understand why you're being defensive, and you're not going to understand why you're so defensive. It's like,
especially if you won't admit it in yourself.
Right. And it's like something that psychoanalysis can teach us is the importance of biology. Mm-hmm. Because psychoanalysis is just it's like little messages from your biology.
It's like embracing your inner animal.
Yes.
Is psychoanalysis.
Yes.
Analysis.
We can understand that, why would we, if we're trying to understand humans, why would we test dogs salivating? Because humans are animals. Humans are a lot like dogs.
Humans are a lot like dogs in the fact that we both need to sleep, both need to defecate,
both need to eat, we both salivate.
Both maybe disproportional, but similar facial
expression.
Like eyes, nose, mouth.
We have this
ears.
Not exactly the same, but we have the same senses. They don't have a sense
They
we don't
use a
have.
mouth to eat. We use a mouth
They
to eat.
they taste, they hear, they smell, they see. They have the same senses. Plants don't have that. Plants, maybe they taste. I don't know.
Dude, what
they
if
don't
they felt
have
pain?
I don't. Maybe they can see, but it's not the same way we see. Maybe they hear, but it's not the same way we hear.
Dude, I would hate how I rip up weeds if I knew that plants could feel that shit. I'm probably off that.
Yeah, me too.
Pretty big.
So, yeah, we analyze dogs because they're so close to us biologically. They're not us, but they are so incredibly close to us compared to trees. Why would we look at a tree to figure out how we should sleep
Yeah.
when we could look at a dog? Because trees don't really sleep the same way we do. It doesn't make sense to look at them like that, but it does make sense to look at
Yeah, if
dogs
you look at
like
a
that.
tree, nothing happens.
So we can psychoanalyze dogs and come to conclusions about humans, and that doesn't mean that it's necessarily any more ethical. But
Especially what you're doing to the dog to get the information.
yeah, I don't know exactly how he tested how they salivated.
See, this is the thing. This is where, like, pursuing truth and knowledge becomes very painful.
Mm-hmm.
Because World War II is a great example, again, but also how animals get subjected to certain things. It's like, to read into it, and to read into, like, serial killer stories, and to, like, read into, like, these horrific things that happen, make you be like, oh, this happens to people.
Yeah.
Oh, there are just psychopaths out there.
Mm-hmm.
That could just happen. I could just bump into a psychopath and he wants a thrill for the night and I was his victim. That could just happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like confronting that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that happens whenever you're confronting knowledge. And then also, it's like World War II. Thinking about, okay, what if I was a Jew during World War II? What if I wonder what the worst experience was.
Right.
I wonder what the worst
Yeah.
prisoner experience was. Who got
Right.
number one?
Someone who was a science experiment, probably.
And what if I was that one?
I don't know
What if I was born into that body?
I don't know who did this, but some people, somewhere around that time period, took the head off of one dog and planted it onto the neck of another dog, so there were two heads, to see if they could keep it alive. And their intention was to use this on soldiers who were hurt during the war, to keep people alive who maybe had important knowledge or something like that. And it's like, is it ethical to do it to the dog? Is it ethical to do it to the soldier? Why are we even testing this? We want to know if we can do it, but why should we do it?
Where does science go too far?
Right. That's not psychology. That's surgery. That's physiology.
You are adding an extra step to see if psychology follows,
Mm-hmm.
but the means are so messy.
Unethical.
Unethical is a good word. But in the realm of science, ethics is very logical. Ethics is logical to a point of
Math.
it's math to a point of ruthlessness.
But
And I mean that in the 100th percentile
Yeah.
way. I'm not saying every scientist ever thinks all these
most,
things.
I feel like
That's not what I'm saying.
I would assume, I would hope most scientists would say transplanting a dog's head onto another dog's body is unethical.
Well, this is crazy is because that probably was more than just one guy, if I had to guess. There was probably a team.
Yeah.
A team of people
Yeah.
agreed, and all those teams have families. All those
Yeah.
families know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And maybe there's someone in their family that's like, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
This is, no,
Yeah.
don't do that. But it's like, at the end of the day, it was probably more than one person.
The ends justified the means. They were hoping to
Yeah.
keep their country safe, I guess. I don't know. Like
They thought they were coming from a righteous
one,
place.
yeah, two dogs being a victim to this is not as morally profound as millions of lives in their country being saved by
Right, so maybe we'll
succeeding
just have to kill a
in
dog
war.
or two. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
just have to chop a dog's head or two off.
Yeah. And it's like, I think ethically speaking, humanity has leaned toward the ends not justifying the means anymore. And even if we could save 5 million people, if we have to kill a few people to do it, we're not trying to do that. I think humanity has started to lean in that direction. I don't know how many people would agree with that or not. But personally, I would lean toward the ends not justifying the means in scenarios like that. It's like consenting volunteers would be the most ethical, and that's more what we do now. We have clinical trials where consenting volunteers go and get tested with makeup products and medicines and blah, blah, blah. Tammy from Together and Company, she goes and does clinical trials, and they'll just inject her with something, and they just monitor her, see the results, see how it affects her. And if she dies from that, she consented. That makes sense. Dogs can't even consent. So I would say it's less ethical to do it to a dog than to a human, because you can know if the human consented or not.
Now, if it's an unconsenting human,
it's just as unethical as a dog.
If you're forcing them...
Yes, it is just as unethical as the dog. And then it's not, to me, not unethical at all if you aren't misleading the person. Because consent's a very specific thing. It's like they need to fully know what they're getting into. You can't just ask them, hey, can I inject this thing? And you know that most people burst into flames when they get injected.
Yeah.
You just didn't even tell them that. That's not real consent.
You're right.
You're misleading them. But if you're like, here's all the risks.
I think an example that is interesting would be astronauts when they get subjected to what the conditions in space and the rocket are going to be like.
Yeah.
So they have to get in that chair
And
that goes crazy.
So
they're like consenting to, in pursuit of going into space, but they're consenting to this having to do it twice bullshit or 3 times or however many times they did it.
And they... Some of them drop out after that. They're like, I can't hear it. I can't do that. I'm not doing that. And that's honest of them. And maybe they should. I'm sure some people are like, okay, I'm going to train in this. I'm not going to go now, but I'll go in 10 years when I have built up my tolerance to this. But either way, it's like we would rather them not go into space not consenting, because it's putting all the other people that they're there with in danger, because this person's going to start freaking out because they can't handle what's going on. It's like, it's better if we are all just aware of what's happening. It's similar to, like, this one's a little more controversial. They show teenage girls videos of what abortions are like and all the results of what happens when you get an abortion. They show them videos, and they are required to go one day, watch these videos, go another day, listen to somebody talk, go another day, and then they get to have their abortion. And for the doctors in that scenario, what they're trying to do is make sure that the person who is coming in here isn't ever going to feel like they didn't truly consent to what was happening, or like they were misled. But some people say that it's unethical to put a pregnant teenager through that before they get to have their abortion. And it's like,
it's a tight spot.
Like you're manipulating them into not having their abortion and into having a child, and like it's biased. It's like, okay, well then why don't we show videos to girls who get pregnant and are saying they want to keep it, of what it's like to be a parent?
So more balanced knowledge and balanced
Unbiased.
Agendas. Yes.
Yeah. And one could say that there's a lot of media that is fed to us about what it's like to be a parent or an adult or a mother. Like, there's all kinds of TV shows that try to give examples of what life is like as a parent. If you watch Full House, I'm not saying it's necessarily accurate, but it's like, these are human beings interacting. These are made-up scenarios they're in, and it's made-up reactions to those scenarios, but it's like, it can give you an idea of what kind of scenarios you might get into as a parent, and then you can question for yourself how you're going to behave in those scenarios and whether you even want to deal with that. And now there's this girl who's 15, and she's probably been fed her whole life all of the scenarios, because if you just watch TV as a kid, you're seeing everything we say it's like to be a parent. Like, the average parent knows, by the time they're a parent, a lot of context to what it's like to be a parent. Most people aren't given a lot of context to what it's like to be someone who had an abortion. So abortion clinics are like, yo, you need to at least see some kind of context of what it's like to have an abortion, to be someone who's had an abortion. I think that's fine. Maybe they should also show a video of the struggles of parenthood. Be like, look, there's negatives and positives on both sides.
I hear that.
But
I'm here for that.
yeah, I mean, the most they can inform this person to help them make an informed, consensual decision, the better. I think it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a world that preaches objectivism.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this quote, I forget who it was by, but it said, I think it might have been Plato, where he said, it was something along the lines of the end of human suffering would either be when kings become philosophers or philosophers become kings.
Mm.
And I'm going to see about it. Philosophers become kings. Quote. I bet it pops up immediately. Plato's quote about philosophers becoming kings is, until philosophers are kings, or the kings and princes of the world have the spirit and power of philosophy, and political greatness and wisdom meet in one, cities will never have rest from their evils. So when I see what you're pitching,
I've never heard that quote.
that quote is crazy. But when you're saying, okay, I don't have, there's nothing inherently that I don't like about them teaching and showing the process of abortion.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying the only thing that you don't like is they're showing one side of the story and making the act in itself the only part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm not sitting here saying that's not a big decision. Of course that is a humongous decision. It's one of the biggest decisions you could ever make.
You should definitely consider that decision for a while.
It's like, yeah, I'm not going to say that you should just scurry by it. But what I am saying is, objective knowledge technically would be finding the complete balance of both sides of a story and remaining honest in reporting the data, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's like I can understand, I can logically hear out why I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like people are so biased and influential. Someone that's influential is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because even when they don't mean to, if they are taking a photo of and they're like at a drive-through McDonald's stock will go up. Like, that's what being an influential person means. Fucking, there was Ronaldo. You know Ronaldo?
Yeah.
The football?
Yeah.
Soccer player. He, there was a Coke placed on his,
Ronaldo?
like, what's his name?
I can't remember.
There was a Coke placed on his, like, pedestal. Am I tripping? His post, where he was about to talk. He has a, what's our
Podium.
Podium, thank you.
Pedestal, podium.
Oh, pedestal, okay, I was right. Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo.
Mm.
I think he was about to give a speech, or he was just in front of a bunch of people, and there was a bottle of Coke at his thing. And he grabbed it, took it down, and was like, water, and put it up. And they were talking about the stock of Coke going down.
Mm.
It's like, when someone is influential, people will attach themselves to that person. And with people like Conor McGregor, he's a great example, an extreme person.
Mm-hmm.
When someone accepts an ideology or accepts someone as like a legend or someone that's going to go down in history as an important figure, they have to be able to rationally defend why they're siding with that person. And when Conor McGregor, Kanye West do very out-of-pocket things, their fan base, if they're going to remain a fan in their head, has to come up with another reason to justifiably follow that person. So then they start to build a lot of high levels of emotion and bias against the things that person might be against,
mm-hmm.
and for the things that person might be for. So Donald Trump has a lot of pull. Donald Trump says something, it will cause a riot. He will
incite.
He stirs people up, and then people are not thinking for themselves now.
Mm-hmm.
Is the point I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
People are adopting him as a leader, which is fine. Leadership is very important, and you should be able to identify and follow a leader, but you also need to be able to think for yourself. You also need to be able to be like, okay, Donald Trump is saying, I can't think of an exact example of something that Donald Trump's saying. He's saying, make America great again. It's the big slogan. And if you're going to wear a hat that says make America great again, you need to really assess what would make America great. That's a question that you have to answer now because you're wearing this hat. You have to answer that question. And you have to be honest. What would make America great? Was it great in the past? And that's what's making the quote valid now. And then was it great while Donald Trump was in presidency?
And what was he doing specifically that you believe is making America great?
Right.
And in relation to the past, what is he doing that is changing us back to what we were before, and how is that making us great?
And then really important questions are, what's your least favorite thing about Donald Trump?
Yeah.
And not a fucking glossed over answer of, oh, I really, I don't like, what's something very shallow that you, like giving Trump the most? Like,
I don't like that they stole the race from him.
Right, something like that, just to give him more props.
Yeah.
Now it's not a question of philosophy and what you actually think. It's a question of props.
Yeah.
It's a question of what figures you want to keep in certain positions, because you know that if you give any leverage, that they will take every inch of it, and now you don't have a stance.
Yeah.
So you have to hold the 100th percentile to feel like you can hold any weight in your opinion. And then people get very excitable because of that, and aggressive and hostile. And these are all more on the extreme ends, but it's like these situations are very real. And then people stop thinking for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
People adopt the thoughts or ideas of their time or of important political figures or just important people in general, and are like, okay, well, it's working for them, so I must have to follow suit because I don't know what to do. It's like, it's painful to admit to yourself that you don't know what to do. It's a very painful thought. I empathize with not chasing it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be chasing honesty and originality. You should be able to defend a belief, absolutely, especially when you're exercising it in a exaggerated manner. And I'll give you an example. There was one time at a college campus where somebody was holding up a sign that made a statement about abortion. It was a liberal arts school, I believe. So it was very much like ban God, legalize abortion, like something like that. And then it was like change my mind. And then some dude, now he went up with a mic and a camera, so it wasn't just like some random person. But he was like, all right, well, I disagree with this. What do you think about that? And then they refused to talk. They refused to talk, and it's like, your sign literally says change my mind. Yeah. And you're not even in this dialogue right now.
They're just it's almost like they heard their parents say what they believed, and then this guy's saying the closest thing to what their parents said, so they're just with this guy. And so they're like, I'm with this guy. You can't even change my mind, I bet. And then somebody tries to change their mind, and they're like, this guy's the enemy.
And then this is where psychoanalysis is really important, because whenever you start, I think spite, resentment is huge, but I think spite might be, at least for me, the gateway to psychoanalyzing myself. It's fucking spite. I'm going to look up the definition of spite. What do you think the definition of spite is?
I think it's based on resentment. It's like,
it's definitely in
it's an action you take because of, motivated by resentment.
Right. It's like almost, it's more specific. It's inside of resentment.
It's like motivated. Like resentment motivated it.
Well, I have it pulled up.
You got the definition?
Yeah, do you want to try your guess, or you want me to just go in?
That was the best guess I got.
Oh, okay. Petty ill will or hatred with the disposition to irritate, annoy, or thwart. to treat maliciously as by shaming or thwarting. And thwarting means to oppose, successfully defeat the hopes or aspirations of. To run counter to, I'm not reading that. But petty ill will or hatred with the disposition to irritate, annoy, or thwart. So this is happening. It leaks out sometimes when I'm talking. But for the most part, that's just in my head.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like considering arguments and being in spite of something. So if someone's defending Trump and you immediately acquire them, you immediately put them in this box of person who deserves this treatment. That's spite. You are unaccepting of their behavior to the point of letting it bother you, and then now you are upset with them for even bothering you. And people do that with groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
And
when someone says, like, in spite of,
yes,
like, okay, and this isn't accurate because it wasn't in spite of, but Noah saying that coffee's not good every day,
mm-hmm.
and me drinking coffee every day in spite of Noah
Mm-hmm.
would mean that I'm drinking coffee. The real meaning is I'm drinking coffee because Noah told me not to, and I disagree, and he's wrong, so I'm drinking coffee just to spite him, in spite of him.
Would you agree that that's a very revealing?
That would be very revealing. If I just drank coffee because Noah told me not to,
yes.
That's very revealing.
Yes.
And then, it's kind of like Socrates drinking hemlock.
Mm.
It was to spite those who were thwarting him.
Well, yeah, he made a lot of claims, and one of his claims was, "How do we know death is bad?" And that that disrupted the God believer, the theologists.
Yes.
And they sentenced him to death, and to be a man of his word, as in, we don't know if it's bad, so I'm not gonna hold an opinion on it. It's like, okay, then die. And he's like, okay,
yeah,
I will.
For all you know, I'm going to paradise. You don't know.
Yeah, you don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Shut up. That's not to say that's how Socrates was, because it's probably not. But
I mean, he had to have at least been very strong-minded to go to the extent of drinking hemlock to prove his point.
Going through death.
I feel like there must have been some spite in him to be like, fine.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can learn a lot from someone's spite.
Yeah, it's like, what Professor Dave explains. Spiteful.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking spiteful.
Mm-hmm.
He does not give even a % of leverage. If he puts someone in the bracket of science denier, as soon as they start straying out of science, they are just so wrong and so uninformed that they're almost helpless and laughable.
Science is not a monolith.
Define.
One whole solid structure.
Oh, mono. Yes, one. Okay.
I mean, a monolith in quite literally is like a large stone.
Mm.
But when a idea is monolithic, it's like solidly believed across the board. Or when you say a group is not monolithic, what I mean is there are a lot of different scientists, and not all of them agree on everything all the other ones say.
Mm.
There's one scientist who's like, yeah, these other 99%, they're pretty good. This 1% here, wrong. And every scientist has that. And
right.
The nature of science is to be questioning. The nature of science is to deny the science you think is wrong. So to be a science denier could be inherently scientific. It is extremely scientific to question evidence but if you're saying evolution is wrong, for example, like that was an example that Dr. Dave talked about, people who say evolution has no evidence, they're a science denier to him. And it's like, what are they doing to formulate new evidence that disproves evolution? Or are they just denying science? That's how you can tell if it's scientific or not. That's how you can tell if it's spiteful or not. If they're just like, science proved evolution, well, science is wrong.
And if they start attacking the person instead of the argument.
Right.
That's where spite is really prevalent.
Yes. And then it's like, okay, they're just not willing to hear the other side. It's not that they have a better idea. It's that they're not willing to hear any other ideas.
Being wrong is too big of a sacrifice.
Yes.
Even for their intellect.
And if they all of a sudden had to decide they were wrong after 30 years of believing in Christianity, it would ruin them. They feel their reputation would be destroyed. I think their reputation may be helped in some ways if they were willing to admit that they may be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Christians believe in evolution. So
True. Cliff does.
Yeah.
Cliff believes in evolution.
I mean, evolution is a pretty impressive product of existence. I don't know what to even call it.
Makeup.
It's like who came up with that? If it's just nature naturally taking its course, that's beautiful. It's incredible. If God made evolution happen, it's still incredible. It's like, it could be God, but either way, evolution itself, pretty good evidence for that. If you're just ignoring the evidence and saying it's wrong, that doesn't make sense to me. If you have done 10 years of research into evolution and you have some really strong evidence. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you bring out something more convincing.
Yeah.
If you can convince me, sure.
Yeah.
But until then, evolution has convinced me a lot. And so is this. Because I also think that, this is going to be tricky. I think the unconscious is something that religious people would deny. Maybe at least to the 80%. They wouldn't think it's 80%.
It's scientists and philosophers who came to the conclusion that the unconscious exists to begin with. Philosophers invented science. Christian philosophers invented science. A Christian philosopher and scientist invented evolution. Descartes.
Yeah.
Christian.
Descartes, yes.
Rationalist. Enlightened. It's like, science is a product of us wanting to prove God. We can't be mad that when we were trying to prove God, sometimes the evidence said that God's not real. We wanted to know for sure, so we made a method of testing it. And sometimes the method comes out with results that say, maybe God's real but not rational. Maybe God's real but not all-powerful. And if we come to those conclusions because of science and somebody says, well, if the science is saying God's not all-powerful, that doesn't align with my belief, so it's not true, they're just not willing to admit that maybe their God's not all-powerful.
Mm-hmm.
We've never said God's not real. Science does not say God's not real. A scientist who says that science says God's not real is denying science. They're in denial of what science's grasp or scope has reached.
So,
because
religion denier.
Yeah, well, yeah, or just not even fully grasping what science has done, because science hasn't been able to prove that God's not real. So if they're inflating science,
like a caricature.
Yes, they're worshiping it.
Dude, he is a caricature, and it's crazy because he is in a level of worship right now,
and he's potentially even genius level intelligent. Like, he's a very smart person, but to be so sure is to inflate science, because it hasn't proven anything yet as far as the creation of the universe and the source of our creation. You can even say the Big Bang has been proven, and it still doesn't prove how the Big Bang happened.
Right. Even Cliff uses that as evidence.
Right.
For him.
And it could be. I agree. It's like, I'm more convinced of a naturalistic universe where a creator didn't do anything. That's maybe mostly bias inside of me. That it's like, but I used to be a Christian.
Same.
It just doesn't.
I'm still looking into it.
I'm still curious. But at this moment, it doesn't click so well with me that a God made this universe. It clicks with me that it's just almost random happenstance. And because it could happen, it did. And I'm still willing to say that I don't have proof. I don't have proof that that's the case. I'm just more convinced of it. And there is plenty of evidence through science that Christianity is true. There's evidence that the Bible is real and true. There's evidence that it was written by people who witnessed things. There's evidence that there are people who talk about there's like locations that the Bible referenced that when we went to those locations, we found the thing the Bible was talking about that we couldn't find before. So then it's like it gives a lot of credibility to the Bible and at least knowing where things happened, like battles or where a boat might be or whatever. But either way, it's like what I believe in is evolution. I don't believe evolution proves in a creator or not. I believe evolution is a state of the world we can observe and see. And the more we observe it, the more we see it's true.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, I agree.
It doesn't give me a conclusion. I don't think we are done yet. The job's not done yet. We haven't come up with the answer
Which
yet.
is why we have a show like this.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we're doing. We're trying to get to the bottom of things here.
I'd like to do my due diligence on what knowledge we believe at least we have today. And I would like to expand on my knowledge. And I would like to potentially in the future test it and come up with new conclusions and come up with new evidence. And if I don't think I'm going to prove God, but if I found evidence that pointed more toward God than toward
science.
I don't even want to say that.
Atheism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I would be more happy that I came up with a solid answer than I would be upset that atheism's not true. I'm not upset that atheism isn't true or that God isn't true. I just want an answer.
And that's everybody. Everybody wants that answer.
Yeah.
The answer is very important for people.
Yeah.
Because it tells them how they should live their life.
If I'm a betting man, it's atheism. But that's just a wager.
I'm letting myself be convinced by both sides right now.
Fair.
I'm listening to a lot about religion. I'm listening to a lot about Christianity and the Bible and Jesus. But I'm also listening to the arguments against these.
If you had a gun to your head right now, you had to make a bet.
If I'm being optimistic, I would say God.
Fair. I don't. It confuses me. I don't know why God sounds like a better answer than atheism. The world's still the world. Is it like you want heaven to be real?
Hold on. I'm
Okay.
going to make a very, very judgmental claim right now.
Okay.
And this might not be completely true. This is just something I've noticed.
Okay.
People who are atheistic on average look less healthy. They on average care less about things. They on average just have more lethargic. And this is judgmental of me.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest.
No, but I hear you.
They are more like it's like like they're ill. Like I'm so it's like I don't want to be that. And
Right.
That doesn't mean that's what I have to be. It doesn't mean that. But I am at least taking in that evidence.
From a psychoanalysis perspective, given that we don't have a true answer and there's nowhere we can look to truly find an answer, if somebody is convinced of atheism, it's bias, right? Would you agree?
If you're completely convinced?
If you're completely convinced of atheism,
yes.
And then it's bias. And I'd say atheism supports a lack of real morality.
There's no intrinsic objective human worth. And then you apply that to yourself. And I'm not saying you have to.
It's like atheism at least would support a reality where there's no intrinsic human worth. And I don't agree that atheism 100% would prove it. Like if we proved there's no God, I don't think that also proves there's no intrinsic worth in life. But people who are atheists are more likely to be biased toward the idea that there's no intrinsic worth in life and be nihilistic.
Right. And that doesn't mean that they have to become sloth-like. It doesn't mean that they have to become less caring about their just human body. But from what I have seen, the people that believe in God, like even Cliff
looks healthy.
Cliff looks great.
He looks happy.
He looks great. He looks fulfilled.
Yeah.
He looks Andrew Tate. He's religious. He's very fit. He's very healthy.
I think Andrew Tate is not genuinely convinced of anything.
Yeah, I don't know. He could be doing that for face.
It's almost like a point he's trying to make.
Right.
I think there's a lot of meaning behind him saying, it's like he's trying to make the point that, I don't know, it was like that episode he talked about like haram and all that shit. It's like, he's like, why is Christianity so much better? If this is how we're behaving under Christianity, I don't like it. I'll just be this other thing because at least it makes sense to me.
That's a power stance.
It's like,
that's a power.
I don't have to be a Christian. And if you believe this is the way we should behave because you're a Christian, then maybe I just shouldn't be a Christian because fuck behaving that way.
Honestly, that's kind of what I'm doing. When I look at atheism and I look at who's representing it, I just don't know. I'm not trying to be judgmental or subjective or biased. I'm really not. But they give me weak, depleted, poached energy.
Is it bad to be weak? Or is that just not what you want to be?
You should be able to say no if you need to say no.
If you at least...
You should be able to stand up for what's driving you crazy.
I would hope that you will recognize the reality that if you're weak, you have less power. And that you may not get everything you want out of being weak.
Power can be tyrannical, but without power, what can you... Awareness is power.
Yeah.
What can you do without power? So, no, I don't think you should... I think objectively you should not be weak.
Fair.
And then it's like atheism's like, well, there's nothing saying that you should be strong. And it's like, okay, well, can you hold those beliefs and then be strong anyway?
I think acceptance is the reality of either situation, because in order to be strong, there's a lot of things you have to give up and sacrifice and accept too.
But it's noticeable to me. Like, I want to find a jacked atheist, but because there's people who slip that they're atheists, but there's no like, this is why I think I'm in it. Like every single, and the people that do that are defending atheism, are not convincing in their body. When I look at them and I'm like, would I want to be you? No, I wouldn't want to be you. It's like,
if we got an answer and atheism was the truth unequivocally and we could know it somehow.
Right. A magic 8 ball.
Right.
Yeah.
If really God came down and said he wasn't real.
Dude, wars. Everyone would die.
God.
Everyone would die.
It would just be, I would not want to, I still would not want to, and this is where it is. It's like my bias is not nihilistic. I don't believe there's no meaning. And the answer wouldn't matter. I would not live my life nihilistically. I'd create my own meaning. I'd be like, okay, then I'm the god of my own life. And everything I do is my decree. And I would just desire more meaning personally. And if there's atheists out there that want to be nihilistic and weak, what they just have to accept is that their nihilism and their weakness will lead their life in a certain direction. And if that's the life they really want to live, great, be nihilist. But if they want to live a life where they have power.
Now, do you think this is where it gets very difficult. It's a problem. It's like, even if we got objective truth that science was the way and that there's no way there's a God, and even to think that is ridiculous. It's like, if the strong defenders of this and the people who are making sure this is happening are lethargic, low energy, incapable people, and then there's another side that's saying, well, no, we're just not buying into that, and they're
happy,
filled with vigor,
yes,
and filled with life, I'm going to join their team.
All it does is show that regardless of the answer, we can see which belief or which bias leads to which kind of life.
Right, but then the question of, is a healthy life better than an unhealthy one? I see any scientific person saying yes.
Right.
But then it's like, but you can't seem to find enough meaning for it or enough priority for it to do it. It's like you're not representing something.
Yeah.
Like,
it's funny that the atheists would be the least healthy.
Yeah, it's like, what?
Yeah.
And then it's like, that's when it's like, okay, I'm going after them as people more than their arguments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm attacking them personally. That's what I'm doing.
The way they're living their life doesn't match up to what you want.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you're trying to convince me of this lifestyle. You apparently live by it, or else you wouldn't be doing this. That's how you look.
Right. You're not convincing me.
Yeah, it's like, you want me to accept your ideals and get the result you got?
I would hope that...
Is that the result I want?
I would hope that I am an image of...
Your health.
Of health.
Healthy.
And that my support of science as my reasoning to be healthy would lead people to be like, okay, this guy, he believes in science, and he looks great.
Well, this is the thing. That's the conclusion that we're making here, is that religious people are on average healthier. I don't know if that's true, but I've just noticed it, at least in like the top dogs in defending religion and the top dogs in defending atheism are two different categories of people.
Yeah.
The people on this side are like Michael Jordan, bro, and it's like
It's like, if you're an atheist, what lifestyle do you believe in, or is it just you're following?
Yeah. What are your priorities?
Urges?
What are you doing on a daily basis with this knowledge?
Yeah. And how can you prove to me that being an atheist and believing in nihilism is leading to you having more of the life you want?
Right. And then it's like, he could make the argument, which is a flawed argument, but the argument of, well, I don't concern myself with those things because they only matter if I make them matter, because nothing matters. So I'm actually less stressed and actually living more in a hedonistic lifestyle, which is what humans want anyway, because they pursue pleasure. It's a very scientific response. And my only objection to that is that is painfully shallow.
You know, I don't know how you feel about vegans. Do you think they lean more toward the religious or more toward the atheist?
I feel like they would say they're atheists.
Their motivation is moral,
very
ethical.
Eastern, though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they probably say they were religious, probably in an Eastern sense, if they know what Eastern religion is.
Like the prime example of veganism in the world is India. Their religion tells them to be vegan. Most Indians are vegan, like the whole country. They don't eat meat. They especially don't use any kind of products from cows. Cows are a religious icon, symbol to them. And they're extremely healthy. Veganism is very healthy. Meat is shown to cause a lot of problems, health problems. Meat in moderation can be beneficial, but eating less meat compared to what Americans eat, for example, would be probably a good thing. And being morally driven to eat less meat may lead to a healthier outcome. So if your religion is like, killing's wrong, so you're just like, I still like meat, I'm going to eat meat, but I'll eat less. It could lead to you looking, feeling, acting healthier. And so the belief in your religion could be leading to healthier decisions, which could be part of what is making religion so
tantalizing.
It's almost
alluring?
Instinctual.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like how it pulls people in.
Yeah, it's like their instinct is to be religious. It's like
because it applies. It's sad, and this is where science comes back in. It steps back into the ring right here. Is where it's like religion can be a muse for people. Religion can be a source of meaning for them, but it validates everything in their ego. So of course you would form this conclusion.
Right.
What else would you want to believe other than that you're going to be able to live forever and that all this suffering and existentialism here is going to end, but you'll be fine in the end? It's like that's like the pat on the head. It's like that's why I'm skeptical. It's because I know that's what I want to hear.
Right.
That's what I want to hear.
I would love for there to be a heaven after this.
Oh my God, are you serious?
And then I get to live forever in that
we
heaven?
all get to live sinless together?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. It's like great. All of us are operating and not worried about these things.
But how does that make rational sense?
That's what I'm saying. This is where science steps back in. This is where science is like, okay, well, you're just telling yourself exactly what you want to hear. This is a God complex. This is your ego trying to validate the meaning in your body. And it's like, I feel like they take the meaning with it. Like they're very, they're like they yank it. Like they're like meaningless. None of this matters. And it's like, bro, why you're just as passionate as them. It's like, who can I trust here? Is there a third option? I think psychology is the third option.
I really like meaningful atheism.
See, that's like that's a paradox. That's like meaningless religion. It's a paradox.
I truly.
I'm not saying paradoxes are wrong.
Yeah, I truly believe that it's almost a misconception of atheism, and that meaning can be drawn from the literal. It can be very mathematic. And evolution led to a sensory experience for humans where meaning is felt, and thus it's real. It is self-evident.
I've heard that the idea of God in itself is God exists even if it's only in our minds.
Right. Exactly. Morality exists because we are here. If we all died out and we were gone, what would morality be? It'd be nothing. There's nobody to hurt anyone. There's no one to be ethical or unethical. Ethics exist because we exist. Humans have an inherent effect on each other, cause and effect, and that's the nature of the universe. We have the earth because of a cause. The earth is an effect of
something that
the nebulous cloud spinning,
right?
The sun being born, just a bunch of dust in space, billions and billions of years of time acting on it, and the earth coming as a result. It's an effect. But then also, because of the earth, we exist. So earth is now a cause, and we are an effect. And there is a chain of cause and effect that led to us
domino
existing.
Effect?
Yes. And so now, because we are an effect, we are also a cause.
Oh, because we're causing effects.
Exactly. So because we are the effect of Earth, and because we cause effects on Earth and on each other, there is a ethical dilemma put into place that now I can cause harm and negative results toward another living being.
Sometimes for my own gain.
And because I know pain, and because I wouldn't want pain, if I inflict pain, I have an ethical dilemma there. I did something I wouldn't want done to me, to someone else. My existence and their existence is the source of morality. And because I feel it, it exists. I have morality because it exists. My existence caused morality. But now morality is a cause, and it has effects. And we behave differently because of morality. So now morality is a cause, and we are affected by it, and our actions are affected by it. And it's just, the future is the effect of now. Now is the cause of the future. And we will just continue behaving through the lens of morality. Morality will evolve. Morality will change. As we change, we will cause morality to change. Morality will cause us to change.
Yeah, as we find out more things that we already knew are going to have to be put under question still, or again, and then new things might have to be formed because of that.
So, to me, morality is almost irrefutable, although nothing is irrefutable to me.
So it's like the 99th percentile.
There's a pretty strong, convincing evidence that morality exists inside me and inside others.
Now that's a meaningful. Now you have applied meaning.
Right.
And the atheistic belief is that any applied meaning can't be objective, and it's only a construct of your mind entirely. There's no objective. There's nothing measurable in your mind.
Paradoxically, they're applying meaning by saying that.
Of course.
And it's
this is where it's very hypocritical.
Right. So it's almost unequivocal. Meaning exists. Why? Because we see it.
Does it exist without us?
Probably not.
This is where science is like, okay, well then it's meaningless. Like that's where.
But we do exist, so it exists.
Right.
It's Schrodinger's cat.
Right.
If we died, it'd be gone. But we're here, so it's here. It's almost disingenuous to look at reality as if, I mean, it's important to look at reality as if things that are now weren't, and we can do that. But to say that reality is meaningless because it's only here because humans are here is to ignore the fact that humans are here. So the reality of the universe was that humans would exist and meaning would be created.
Do you think what's scary about science is that it has them detach to a level where it's like, okay, well, they're only applying as much meaning as they have decided for themselves for it to mean. And like you said, that's what they're exactly doing with science. But they believe that since the math is the same every time, that they have no other reason to act differently. I'm taking extreme examples like Professor Dave explains.
Right.
He's going to an extreme level to obtain the same thing that he's fighting against.
So he's saying, mathematically speaking, if humans didn't exist and meaning didn't exist, that meaning is not real and it's subjective and it's only existing inside of humans.
Subjective, yes. Atheism promotes that it's relativism.
Right. Objectively, the universe led to the genesis of humans. So objectively, mathematically, the ones and twos of the universe added up to humans existing. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're basing science off of evidence, the evidence is that humans exist. We have it right here in front of our eyes. And so meaning exists. And something existing is bound inside of a time. The sun exists right now, but it won't always. But that doesn't mean that the sun is only a perception of when it existed. It's the sun existed for this amount of time, and then it eventually will nova and go away, and so will we. And then meaning won't exist anymore, but that doesn't mean it never did.
Mm-hmm. Meaning
exists while we exist, because we see it, because we feel it. It's like hunger exists. If we weren't here, if nothing was hungry, hunger wouldn't exist. But
right.
We're here, so hunger exists.
Right. But then the thing about moral relativity, especially about you saying that there is objective morality, now you're saying in the sense of people feel morality. Now what about in the sense of, are there any one objective morals? Is killing people an intrinsic, always 100% the case, a value of every human that's ever been born and will be born? Is that existing in everyone? For sure.
I don't know that that's been proven.
Right.
So
do you believe it?
This is conjecture, but imagining that other humans are like me in a lot of ways, although different.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they hunger. How do I know that? How do I know that they hunger?
The evidence.
They eat.
You've hungered.
What if they're lying? What if they're like, we just eat,
yeah.
but we're going to say we're hungry, but we weren't hungry. We just ate because we wanted to.
Yeah.
My evidence is that humans also hunger. Other humans besides me also hunger.
All of them.
All of them.
Right. I agree.
So in the same way, I believe, because I genuinely experience feelings of morality and can almost scientifically, mathematically explain why I feel morality, I can assume other humans experience the feelings of morality and could potentially intellectually understand why they feel morality. And this leads back to the question, which was, do I believe... What was the question?
Do you believe that there's any one moral truth that everyone shares?
I would imagine everyone, even a psychopathic murderer, would understand intellectually that killing another human being is immoral. Would you agree that every human being experiences feelings of immorality surrounding murder? or at least to the 99th percentile.
It gets tricky if it's only the 99th percentile, but I hear what
It's
you're
maybe
saying.
not an absolute truth.
Which then is like, okay, why? Well, either way,
It's an anomaly almost.
That's a tangent, but
it's
like I don't know what being psychopathic is.
right.
I don't know what
Apparently
that is.
they lack all empathy.
Apparently, but who knows really?
I don't know if they.
Maybe they go through episodes of guilt before they go to bed. Maybe they.
Yeah, it's a complex.
Yeah, it's like. Maybe they do experience. Does every
Do they
single
maybe
person,
even just they don't feel it, but they understand intellectually that
now that
morality would deem
that would
murder bad.
That would mean that morality is not based on emotion. And there's a lot of people who are convinced that morality is based on just a reaction to, like, the bias towards an action.
I think ethics was and is a pretty solid attempt at mathematizing morality. I think it's just safe to assume that murder is immoral based on the vast majority of human beings feeling that it's immoral.
I would agree that the vast amount of people are aware of immoral behavior. But the question becomes, where does that come from? And then if your response is, and I'm not saying I fully disagree with this, but evolution, we evolutionarily needed that moral compass in ourselves to survive and thrive. There are scientists that say it leaves the realm of science only because it can't be measured. Apparently that's what I've read recently. I don't know. I'm gonna look more into it. But if
we're using more logic here
Yeah.
than science specifically.
if it can't be tangibly measured, if you can't see it, touch it, then it's not science. Apparently,
we can see and touch, in a way, human behavior.
yeah,
Humans behave as though morality.
yeah.
is,
They're a physical thing that you're observing.
we can test whether humans day to day decide to murder. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say participate in some behaviors.
Yeah. Like, we can see that humans shy away from certain behaviors. We can psychoanalyze humans and understand that they aren't doing something because they are experiencing guilt, most likely. Or that they at least put some kind of thought into how they're affecting others. And how, if I do this, this person might be mad. This person might be sad if I did this. So they're experiencing the dilemma that ethics brings about and that morality brings about, which is if I take actions I want to take, it might affect someone else. So I can't just do exactly the thing I wanted to do. I have to modify it. I have to do what will get me what I want to the best of my ability while also not hurting someone else. And we can see that humans behave under this. We can psychoanalyze humans and see that their behavior reflects a moral compass somewhere inside them. And if I'm assuming that evolution is what brought about that moral compass, to me, in my mind, it just is saying that evolution is the source of the meaning. And that now the meaning is here through evolution.
But I guess what gives you the meaning? Because the realization of death is really where choosing science or choosing God is where it comes into play the most.
Why does someone rush into a burning building and to save a bunch of people?
Is it to... It's like there's two reasons. It's like it means something to him, as in his priorities are exposed in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows the consequences and the risks of his behavior, but he also knows the result of the desired outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a string pulling at him from both sides where it's, okay, he's preserving the genetic pool and saving the most amount of potential, because usually it could be like kids or his wife. and he's trying to remain in good sexual standings with his wife.
Mm-hmm. And his community.
Yeah, and his community. And then
like if you save your neighbor's wife,
right.
your neighbor's gonna respect you.
Right. I was thinking of like his wife. That's like an argument that science would make, I guess.
Yeah.
In like the standing of evolution. But
yeah.
But then there's a side of it that maybe people are just jumping the gun, but they want it to be something deeper. They want it to be love. They want it to come from a place of complete free will.
Mm.
People take actions in like that to prove things to themselves about humanity. It empowers us. It also makes us feel like we possess free will, even though that was a very impulsive moment.
Mm-hmm.
That was a moment where he was almost possessed.
Every decision was presented to him, and he chose the heroism.
And it gives people faith. When people see acts like that, it gives them faith.
Mm-hmm.
They think that it shows the power of free will, and it shows that even though it's like it's not quite like the mountain of Sisyphus, but it is like pushing a boulder up a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's like showing someone that prevails in the face of adversity, which proves that there's something deeper to reality. And I'm not necessarily saying that's the case.
I think it's showing reality for what it is.
Right, but it's like, so did he make that decision or was it impulsive? And if it's both, how does that work?
Let's say it's impulsive.
Okay.
Evolution led to him making that decision.
It was just a spur of the reaction. That's what he decided to do, and he went for it.
What is evolution? It's like evolution is the organisms on Earth abiding as closely to the rules of the universe as possible. The ones that abide by what the universe decrees.
Declares?
It's like
what it states. It's encaptured us.
Right. We live in an environment where drinking water makes us live longer and reproduce. So we drink water. Why? Not because we chose to, but because the universe determined for us that water would assist us. Why does it assist us? Because the chemicals need it to happen.
Yeah.
The right reactions in our body need it, or it won't happen. Why? Because the universe made it so. The universe just is that. We are just the universe being the universe. And what does the universe do? It rescues itself from burning buildings. We're just the universe rescuing each other from burning buildings.
So then what does it mean of the coward? What does it mean of the man that doesn't do that? Is that just a different string of impulse?
Yeah.
So it's all impulse.
Yeah. So they're both the universe, both guys.
The guy that's cowardly and doesn't run in,
right,
and the guy that runs straight in.
But both of them know that this one's the coward and this one's the hero. The universe knows.
So then what determines the people that are willing to jump into the heroism and the people that are not? And is there something there? Or is it simply a different string of impulse, a different domino effect?
I think they all have the impulse to go into the burning building because they all know that that's right. They know that that's moral. But not all of them.
And it sounds like it's a question of philosophy. It's a question of what decisions have they made up to that point? How brave have they been up to that point? What decisions have they made in their life
What's
so
in their
far?
genes? What did their ancestors do that's leaked through their instincts?
Right, and that's another thing. So it's like, are we just helpless?
If you look at yourself as an individual separate from the universe, you are a subject of reality and of you're a domino. And the domino before you didn't decide to knock over into you. The domino before it didn't either. It's a cataclysm of dominoes falling and you're just one of them. But together, as a whole, the dominoes are the entire cause. All the dominoes together are the whole cause and the whole effect.
It's all just one big thing wrapped up. It's like the fucking wrapping up of the variables.
Yeah.
It's like in a sack.
It's yin and it's yang. It's both. So you are helpless as an individual, but you are the universe. You're a very small piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of its little toes. But my pinky toe's me. I think of my pinky toe as part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I take a step, it's my pinky toe is a very small part of that step, but it's there and it's part of it. And it's helpless. It can't even, I'm the one deciding if the pinky toe takes a step. But if I didn't have my toes, I couldn't take a step.
So, do you think courage loses its virtue in that sense?
Why does the universe behave courageously?
To triumph.
Yeah, to progress.
To win.
To achieve,
destroy. To grow.
Yeah. I think the universe is very noble and very courageous. And I think the universe is also cowardly.
Yes. So we're just a subject of those two energy fields.
Yeah.
And whichever one swept us is the one that swept us.
And it's like, what would the courageous man be without the coward?
I agree.
We need the coward. Or it wouldn't mean anything. And so it's like the fact that the universe led to us existing and made sure there's cowards and heroes, it made sure there's meaning. Why is the universe making sure that at every turn we see the yin and the yang?
So this is like the conundrum. Do you see what I'm getting at? It's like, remember, like whenever people say, I don't want to give it to God because if I give it to God, I'm stripping it of my...
Yeah, that's
this is the science version of that.
Yeah.
It's like it wasn't me because I'm...
But you are the universe.
This is where it gets tricky.
I feel very empowered thinking I am... should your cell... You have a cell in the muscle of your leg. Should that muscle cell in your leg feel powerless? Or because you're the one with the muscle and the leg and the body. And that little cell isn't doing a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, and it's not even deciding it. You're deciding all of it. But if you took away all the cells in your body, you'd be nothing. Each cell has to be there, even if it's a small piece. You wouldn't be you if you didn't have every single one of those cells. So the universe is like that, and we're like a cell. And the universe couldn't do anything it's doing here with humanity if we weren't here as a part of every step that humanity's taking. And if we didn't have the coward and we didn't have the hero to take the steps they're taking, there would be no meaning. And it's like, I feel powerful because I understand I am the universe. The universe is powerful. And everything that's happening with humanity, I'm a piece of that. And I could have a huge rippling effect on the universe through my actions because I'm the universe.
Okay.
And maybe I individually, Seth, am not so much the one that decided it, but I as the universe did.
This is where I don't understand.
It's very ethereal.
It's like, it reminds me of a quote by Alan Watts, where he says, you're not the experience and the experiencer because of the same thing. You're literally just watching the same thing.
Yeah.
The thing that's happening to you, the thing that is affecting into the domino effect, essentially, and you watching it are the exact same thing. That sounds like what you're saying.
Kind of, yeah. It's like...
So you're like appreciating the show for the exciting moments and where the journey will go, but it's just that. And I don't mean just in a bad way. I just mean it feels like a movie, I guess.
But I'm also it's like being the actor in the movie and watching the movie at the same time.
So pain is real.
Yes.
Pleasure is real.
Yes.
So you are experiencing all of these things.
Yeah.
But it's not so much your will that caused them.
There is a will that caused it.
Mm-hmm.
And that will is inside me.
Mm-hmm.
And the things I do are caused by that will. But that will was given to me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't just make it on my own.
Is it like the Arthur Schopenhauer quote where it's like you can do what you want, but you can't want what you want?
Right.
I didn't decide that I wanted to write all the time.
I didn't decide that saving people from the burning
That's
building.
what I wanted to do.
Right.
That just happened to be we want to be courageous because we want to be courageous.
But we didn't decide what courage is.
Yeah.
We didn't decide that running into the burning building and saving the children was going to be the thing that we would have to do to be courageous. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an adjective.
Right.
You've applied an adjective to watching something.
Yes. So it's like, I didn't decide to be hungry. I decided to eat.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't decide to even want to be courageous. But I do decide to be courageous.
Right. That makes more sense. I hear what you're saying. Honestly, the Arthur Schopenhauer quote helped the most with that.
Yeah.
And he's very influenced by Eastern philosophy.
And that it's like the universe gave us courage. We wouldn't have it. But it's like the product of evolution that led up to courage being something that is held onto by...
Praised.
Yeah, it's like humanity makes sure the guy that was courageous, if he lives through the whatever turmoil he goes through, they make sure he puts his dick in a woman.
Right.
They make sure he has kids because we want to keep the... And so being courageous is beneficial to our evolution. It helps keep humans alive. It helps keep the courageous alive, or we wouldn't have courage. Courage would go away if it was bad. But we have an instinct in us to act courageously because our ancestors who did that lived
and prevailed.
And it's up to the universe. In a way, I don't see the universe as even a conscious thing. We're the conscious part of the universe. If the universe is conscious, it's us. We're the dirt that got up and thought. And but unconsciously, the universe just is by nature expecting courage. It's like we by nature have led up to a point where, because the universe is the way it is, because all the numbers add up to courage being something beneficial that keeps people alive, we have courage. So it was gifted to us. But it's like the people who chose it are the ones who perpetuated it. If they had never chosen it, it would never have kept going.
It had to be started and then evolved.
It's us responding to the necessity in front of us. And we could either we could have just always let the burning building go. Something about us made us pick going into the burning building, and something about us kept that going. We believe in it. The average person, even the coward, is like, I can justify why I'm not going in there.
Yeah.
But the guy that went in there,
good on him.
Yeah.
Good on him.
We all know that that's the right thing. We all know it.
I
just didn't do it.
Yeah.
But the fact that we all know it's the right thing means it's almost like a truth of the universe that we can see that courage is good. And so then we can just question, why exactly is it that this universe has a bias toward courage? The universe itself is biased toward
That's
courage.
something worth inspecting.
Yeah.
Well,
man,
I think this was a good first episode.
Yeah, it was. Was it like 3 hours?
Yes.
Damn.
Remember how I said we were open at the beginning?
Yeah, we're very open.
Very ready to hear both sides of an argument. Very ready to challenge, but also emphasize someone else's point.
I don't want to think that courage is meaningless. I prefer to believe that the universe is meaningful, but
it just makes me want to look into it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, why is courage so impactful and important? And it's like, that's
why is meaning?
Yes.
Why am I like, no, meaning is there.
Yeah.
And it's like, something in me is
I think it springs from a fear of death. I think it springs from that more than anything else. That's what I really think. If you watch it, we're going to be we're doing another episode in 2 days.
Dude. We'll be live again in 2 days.
Yes.
We'll be posting this video.
Probably we could
picked
do
a day.
it on,
I think Thursday.
It should be Thursdays whenever we get ready. Sundays whenever. We're gonna have videos posted on Sunday. Dude, do you want to do your Twitch and my YouTube?
Yeah.
Or is that gonna be too confusing?
No,
should we make a matter of fact YouTube?
If we want people to find it,
we're gonna make a matter of fact YouTube. I know we sound so excited about it.
We'll be recording episodes every Sunday.
Yes.
9 a.m. is going to be the actual time.
8 is when you want to do it?
I said 9.
Oh, 9. I thought you said 8.
We started at 10:30 today because, this was the first time we'd set this podcast up. So,
yeah, I didn't know how it was going to go exactly. I had a rough draft of what I wanted to talk about, but I figured honestly just psychoanalysis would take a lot of time.
And as a matter of fact, it did. Catch us on Sundays, 9 o'clock, and then you can watch our past episodes when we post them on Sundays on YouTube.
We got DAYZ and Seth A.M.
DAYZ and Seth A.M.
Peace.
We out.